This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Whenever there is candy around, I always make sure I have enough. I know that my friend comes to town and always I have to share the stuff. Halfies, that's what he says to me. Halfies, half for you, half for me. Halfies, gimme some. If I don't share, I have a bomb. One day I had an apple so big it must have been big as a balloon. I wanted to eat it, but then my good friend he came too soon. Halfies, that's what he said to me. Halfies, half for you, half for me. Halfies, gimme some. If I don't share, I have a bomb.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the prestigious third annual Place to Be Nation Comics Halfie Awards. This is the biggest award show in Place to Be Nation pop history.
And you can hear the crowd cheering in the background.
That's right. The crowd is alive. We're coming to you live from the Place to Be Nation pop studios in wonderful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And we are here today to talk to you about the best thus far in 2016 comics, because we at Place to Be Nation don't believe in year-end comic book awards. No. We believe in only looking at the first half of the year. So, with that being said, I'm going to introduce you first to my companion here in the hard-traveling Fanboys, as this is technically a giant-size edition of the hard-traveling Fanboys. He is the Doctor of Style himself, Nick Duke. Nick, how are you?
Indeed.
Very good. Eloquent as always. And we've got the biggest panel ever assembled, to my knowledge, for a comic book podcast here at Place to Be Nation, certainly at Place to Be Nation Pop. And I'm going to go
wait
ahead
a minute, Greg. Would that make it the largest panel ever in the history of the longest-running weekly episodic comic book podcast on Place to Be Nation Pop? Trademark?
No, it would not.
Oh, well, never mind.
Actually, it would. But okay, let's go ahead and introduce the panel around the room. And we've got some luminaries here. But I'll start off with someone who has never been on a hard-traveling Fanboys podcast, certainly. But you know her from the conversation she had with Todd Weber on his Conversation Comics podcast just a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, I guess. Stephanie Holly, welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be on here, since I listen to you guys all the time now. We
do have listeners. That's incredible.
And we've been told that you're a draw.
Yes, you are. You're the box office draw.
I was really surprised by that. Normally, it's like I'm like the matinee. I'm just, or like the double feature from with the movie at the Dollar Theater.
Yeah, which are really usually the only kind that I can afford to see.
I was about to say, given Greg's cheap tendencies, I don't think you're saying anything negative in his.
No.
Yeah, this could be a reflection on the five of us as well. But
yeah, I feel like Brad was backhandedly saying we're not draws. So
yeah,
we're pretty much
sort of had to. He sort of had to backpedal and walk that one back a little bit after the fact. We enjoy all your contributions. So. But I felt much better, but I'm glad to have Stephanie along, and glad to hear that she is a draw, because certainly ratings are a good thing. So
that's exactly right. We'll be raking in the money just as soon as we can. Well, that voice that you heard on the other end of the Todd Weber, ladies and gentlemen, the man who penned the classic Montel Jordan hit "This Is How We Do It." Todd Weber.
We will eventually introduce everyone. We'll get there. Don't worry about it.
I was just about to say, hey, and who's that voice we hear over there on the East Coast? It was Tim Capel. But hi, I'm Todd Weber, host of Todd Weber's Conversation Comics with Todd Weber.
Is that the official title now?
This show is already going swimmingly well. Tim Capel, former WWE heavyweight champion of the world, here on the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. I so look forward to our little group therapy sessions. It's been a while since we had one. I will say that on this particular installment, I'm going to be the guy kind of sitting in the back in the corner with his arms crossed without very much to say. So I'm looking forward to turning away listeners with all my snide remarks. And
Statler and Waldorf, the one-person Statler and Waldorf of this conversation.
Quite so, yes. So, to be a part of the award-winning Halfie award-giving podcast is a real treat and a real honor.
And award-winning. We have given ourselves the Halfie for best weekly, episodic, et cetera, et cetera.
We do like to both give and receive, so that's typically.
Is there any penalty for dishonesty?
No, none at all. We in fact thrive on it. And there is one more panelist we've yet to introduce. He, of course, is the former starting power forward for the New Jersey Nets when they were still in New Jersey. Russell Sellers, how are you doing, sir?
If Stephanie Holly is the Dollar Theater, I am the movie that you only torrent late at night and you never tell anybody about it. So there you go.
Probably gives your computer a virus.
Or I could be looked at as what will happen when Peter Jackson inevitably directs Sharknado 4. So
a 9-hour Sharknado spectacular, if you will.
And you like Seth Rollins for that.
That will.
I'm not kidding.
Spectacular is probably not the word that I would choose to describe it, but hey, if you want to go there, I'm fine with it too.
Did I just hear? This is off topic, ladies and gentlemen. Did I just hear that Seth Rollins is going to be in Sharknado 4? Is that a real thing?
Yeah,
yes.
That's real. That's real. Yeah.
It was on What Culture?
Oh, that's a real thing. I thought we were still making jokes. Okay. I am looking forward to it.
We've crossed over into actuality now.
Well, is Eon Ziering still going to be in it?
You have to assume. And if he's in it, why not Dylan McKay? I mean,
I think Seth Rollins has a very, very small part in it.
He's going to be one of those
Astrotech something.
Yeah, he's going to get eaten like Frankie Muniz or whatever in the last one. All the celebrity cameos.
With all this celebrity talk that we're giving you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of banter you can only hear on giant-size editions of these podcasts. But let's get started with our very first awards category. Oh, what's that? Oh, I forgot. One more panelist to introduce. I didn't tell any of the other panelists about this. We have on the line from France himself, legendary actor Gerard Depardieu. Mr. Depardieu, how are you, sir? Apparently we're having some problems picking him up. We'll get back later, and hopefully we can get him on the back half of the show. But let's get started with our first...
He's on his 13th bottle of wine right now, so you got to work with him a little bit.
Yeah, he's having issues with Skype, I'm sure. We can barely navigate Skype when we're sober, so... Anyway, we're going to get started with the very first category, which is the category that has been a recurring feature here for the last couple of years, Breakout Creator. And what this means is not necessarily someone that is brand new to the comic book scene, but somebody that is new to you. So each individual panelist will be talking about a creator who has either come out of nowhere or just surprised them with their output in the last 6 months. So to get us started, I'm going to pitch it over to Nick. And Nick, who is your pick for Breakout Creator of the half year?
Well, anybody who's listened to our weekly podcast can probably see this one coming a mile away. And as you said, not new to the comic book industry, but certainly new to me is Dan Abnett. And I'm going to go with him mainly for his contributions to Aquaman, which is, made that book once again one of probably the 5 best books in comics in my view on a month-to-month basis. But also, he's going to be writing Titans coming up. He's already penned the very good, from what I understand, Titans Hunt series, which I haven't read, and I loved his Titans Rebirth. So excited to see what he's got coming up for us the rest of the year. But his Aquaman, clearly to me, is just a thing to behold right now, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it goes. That #1 issue that just dropped this past week was absolutely phenomenal. So that dude has just exploded onto my radar in a big bad way.
Yeah, I agree. He's a hell of a choice for that pick. Todd, let's go over to you. Who is your pick for Breakout Creator?
Breakout Creator, Todd's choice was Mr. Tom King, based on a couple different things. Primarily for his excellent work on Marvel's The Vision miniseries, But he's also the new writer of Batman. I'm looking forward to it. He's also writing a Vertigo book called Sheriff of Babylon that's top notch. He wrote DC's Omega Man up until it vanished. And I wasn't actually following that, but I'm going to have to go back and check it out because everything else he's done has been outstanding. So a worthy successor to Scott Snyder on Batman, Tom King, is my choice for the breakout creator of the half year 2016.
Great pick. Yeah, he's currently doing good work on Batman. I really enjoyed the Batman #1 issue from him, which was actually only the second Tom King comic I've ever read, but it was really impressive. Any thoughts from the panel on Mr. King?
I would like to weigh in and say that the other book he was working on with Tim Seeley, Grayson, was one of the absolute best comics that DC was publishing. And that those two are continuing on with, like you said, with Tom on Batman and Tim taking on Nightwing. I think that 1-2 punch is going to continue, and it's going to be it's really going to be something to watch. That and I agree with Todd. That first issue of Batman was outstanding.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that brings us to Stephanie. Stephanie, who is your pick for the breakout creator of 2016 thus far?
I'm going to say Liam Sharp,
Nice.
who did the Wonder Woman art for Summer Rebirth and then like the issue #1. It is just very nice to have Finch off the title. So nice. And I mean, I feel bad because he's not a bad artist. I just felt his art did not fit the series. So one, I'm really glad he's on, but then like to have someone who I really, really enjoy on there and not know about them and see that on that book, I'm just really proud of DC for recognizing someone like him on that book. And I'm just glad that it seems like he's getting a really positive reaction.
Yeah, he's been outstanding, actually. I just read Wonder Woman #1 the other day and was really impressed by his art. Okay, so we had Liam Sharp from Stephanie there, and let me get to my pick for breakout creator of the half year, which would be someone that actually I believe may have topped Nick's list last year, actually, and that is Ben Percy, who has been writing Green Arrow recently. And in particular, I'm giving him this vote based on the Rebirth issue of Green Arrow and the issue #1 that just came out of Green Arrow, the restart of the line. Huge fan of what he's been doing. He's kind of brought Oliver Queen back to kind of the old Kevin Smith era, mixed with a little bit of Mike Grell. Totally night and day from the awesome Jeff Lemire Green Arrow, but in a good way. It's his own. Jeff Lemire did his own thing, but I really like what Ben Percy's been doing. He's captured the voice of Oliver Queen. He's captured the voice of Black Canary, and probably the verse as well. I'm sure she's a good singer since she has a rock band and all that. He also captured Emiko Queen perfectly, and I really, really love that issue #1. It's actually been my favorite of the post-Rebirth #1 issues so far. So Ben Percy is my pick. Let's send it over to Russell. Russell, who is your pick for the breakout creator thus far this year?
Well, there were actually a few for me, but I narrowed it down to this one guy who's not really new to comics so much, but he's had one hell of a year, one hell of a half year thus far, and that's James Tynion IV. He broke out for me with his Batman TMNT miniseries. He's kind of struggled a little bit, and I think most of our views with the like any solo hero books that he's worked on. But in the team dynamic, he is just one of the absolute best. He wrote the Ninja Turtles, I think, as well as, or maybe even better than the current IDW Ninja Turtles ongoing, which is actually being co-written by Kevin Eastman. And that right there just put him on my radar. And then, of course, he has Detective Comics right now, which has turned into a team book with Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown, and Cassandra Cain. Got I know it sounds odd to say that Clayface is a member of that team, but just the way he writes them all as a family, as an actual team, it really feels like he's coming to his own. He has found his spot and the place where he is most comfortable, and that's writing a team book. And I think if he can keep this up and keep this pace, we could see him taking on a bigger team later on. I wouldn't be surprised that if in like a couple of years or something, if say Brian Hitch were to leave Justice League, or maybe another Justice League book comes up, or maybe even a Teen Titans run might be in his future, because he really gets how to write that team dynamic, and he's still a relatively young voice in comics. So I think that if anybody were capable of writing that younger dynamic, it might be him. And this is also a guy who's brought us a take on Batwoman that I haven't seen a take on Batwoman this good since Greg Rucka was writing her prior to the New 52. So James Tynion IV is surprisingly my top pick for breakout creator of the year.
Yeah, he might be the most improved writer to me, because I was never too high on him when he was writing like Talon and some things like that, but he's really picked it up with Detective Comics in particular, and I'm interested in reading that TMNT crossover as well whenever I can get my hands on the trade.
I think you will like it.
Well, that brings us to the end of one category, and at the end of each of these categories, we mentioned earlier that Tim Capel will be sitting back as the Statler and Waldorf meets Dark Passenger of our conversation. And Mr. Capel, what were your thoughts on the category breakout creator and some of the picks that you heard from the peanut gallery here?
Well, quite a moniker to live up to, but I think I will back up Nick's pick of Dan Abnett, not so much for Aquaman, although I'm sure his work on Aquaman is exemplary. I'm going to actually go with...
Would you say that he is one of the better Aquaman creators in recent Aquaman history, Tim?
From what I've heard, he's doing a great job on Aquaman. I haven't personally been reading his Aquaman, but I think that people seem pretty happy with his Aquaman thus far to date. But
it's a pretty good Aquaman book. It's definitely better than Aquaman and the others, and it kind of makes me want another Aquaman spin-off title that would have Mira as the lead with Aquaman as the side character. So each month you would have Aquaman and then also the Aquaman spin-off title. And then, of course, maybe as we get ready for the Aquaman movie, we could have a month where there's an Aquaman tie-in movie comic, an Aquaman solo book, and, of course, the Aquaman and Mira book, all working together to kind of make this mass promotion for Aquaman.
And perhaps...
How are you feeling over there, Todd?
I'm almost out.
So, yeah, I might check out his Aquaman, but... I'm going to give it to Dan Abnett for his work on Force Works. I believe it remains to be seen whether Force will work. Avengers West Coast certainly did not seem to be working, but Force Works, I don't think it can be argued with such great characters as Cybermancer and Moonraker and Century that this is going to be the breakout hit of 1994. So keep your eye on that and Dan Abnett's efforts on that series in conjunction with Aquaman.
I'm very interested to see how his work turns out for the rest of 94 here. That's going to be curious to watch. So Nick, tell us a little bit about our next category here.
Aquaman. No, so the next category up for debate here today, we're going to talk about our best writer, favorite writer of the 6 months we've covered here in 2016. And so to kick us off, let's go over to Russell.
Well, I first would like to say that this is the most on-topic subject we've had on Aquaman since we attempted the podcast the last time. So, yay for us for staying on topic. And with that...
and what topic is that?
Aquaman.
Aquaman.
And speaking of Aquaman, my best writer of the half year has got to be Jeff Johns. And I say that because he wrapped up his Justice League run in tremendous fashion, closed out the Darkseid War, which might be right up there with, I won't say that it's as good as his Sinestro Corps War, but I will put it right below it. I mean, it's nipping on its heels. No heavy feature for Aquaman in that one. but it was a fantastic story nonetheless. And, of course, we all know that Geoff Johns is pretty much responsible for DC Universe Rebirth. He wrote that one-shot, 80-page one-shot that set up everything. I think any of us who have any sort of connection to Wally West wound up having a very moving, like a very moved response to one page in particular. And we all know that Geoff Johns is a big idea guy, that he's someone who he really knows how to set up that long game. And he really did with that last page of DC Universe Rebirth #1. One of them, it's an idea that whenever I saw it in print, it was the idea that I never knew I always wanted. And I was one of those that had that. I had a very strong reaction to it. I was like, that is brilliant. I set the issue down. I was like, this is one of the most genius ideas that Geoff Johns has ever had. And I hope that everyone involved in these various Rebirth projects will be able to live up to the hype that this has created. And so far, so good. But you really got to give it to Geoff Johns as far as like the guy who generated the idea and put it into practice, because this is, one hell of a note to go out on if he is in fact done with monthly comics for a while. I think he'll be back at some point or another. I really think that he's got to come back to wrap up that story that he started with DC Universe Rebirth. But I think it has to go without saying that, I mean, what a mic drop if he is indeed done for an extended period of time. So in my view, you got to give it to Geoff Johns.
Yeah.
I also think it'd be really cool if he came back and maybe just did a couple pages of the eventual wedding special for Mira and
Arthur Curry, right?
Aquaman. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, great minds think alike, Russell, or in this case, a great mind and an average mind like mine think alike, because I also picked Geoff Johns as my writer of the year. For me, it was very easy, because anytime one guy writes, and without spoiling too much later down the line, writes what I think are the two best single-issue comics I've read this year, he's going to be my pick. He's been really on a roll this year between Justice League and then going out with one of the best comics that he may have ever written in DC Universe Rebirth #1, continuing the tradition that he's had at DC of being the guy that loves the characters, knows their histories, and knows how to modernize them and also make them accessible to a new audience. So, yeah, Geoff was my pick as well. Let's swing it over to our West Coast buddy, Todd. Todd, who is your pick for the breakout? I'm sorry, not breakout creator. We already did that one. For writer of 2016 thus far.
So I selected Scott Snyder because he tied up a nearly unprecedented run on Batman very well, with great issue 50 and a so-so issue 51, and he got a co-creator credit on 52. But and even Batman Rebirth was only okay. But I just really enjoy the achievement that Scott Snyder had, and he didn't. Damn it! I think that Geoff Johns actually may have had a better achievement if I think about it. But Scott Snyder, his work on Aquaman. Damn it! I'm doing it now.
That bottle of Crown is just gone.
We have reached probably a high water mark for 25 minutes in. I mean, this is the soonest we've ever gone off the rails. This is going to be interesting.
If I tweeted Aquaman in regards to this recording, does Todd still have to drink?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
You just said it. So, all right. So we are recording now. So, dear listeners, please understand that every time someone has said Aquaman, I have had a drink, and that was my own doing.
Does that count that you just said Aquaman?
Fuck.
And then I said Aquaman twice.
I'm almost out, so I'm almost out of...
Let it be said, the goal is not to kill Todd Weber, fellow panelists. No.
Nobody would mix your podcast then.
We do have to keep that in mind.
Yes.
So anyway, so Scott Snyder, I still, I'd say 1A is still my writer of the year, and Jeff Johns would be 1B. But even though I didn't officially vote that way, I think I'm still going to tip the hat to Scott Snyder, who was given some pretty ridiculous things to do for YOU, and still pulled them off in a interesting manner that I enjoyed reading, even though, Commissioner Gordon shouldn't look like that at this point. He should be much older, and, they look like Pat Hingle in the 1989 Batman movie. Like, trying to imagine him fitting into the bat suit. Really?
I don't want to imagine Pat Hingle fitting into any suit.
Yeah, that's Commissioner Gordon. Gary Oldman, I guess you could reconcile that a little bit. Or even J.K. Simmons now. Have you seen the picture of J.K. Simmons? Is that guy doing roids or what?
J.K. Simmons would beat all our asses, so I'm just going to refuse to comment.
Yes, sir, Mr. Simmons. So, all that being said, that leaves us to Nick. Nick.
Jeff Johns.
And there it is.
Enough said. Stephanie, your pick for Writer of the Year, half year.
I specifically did not pick Jeff Johns because I had a feeling everyone else would say Jeff Johns. But I went with Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor as a team.
Very good.
Because I have not been able to keep up with everything this year. And even though some of the stuff technically started last year in 2015, it went on through 2016. Like with Starfire and Harley Quinn and Super Zero. Those have just been really fun books that I've been able to just open up and read and relax. And while it's super nice that like Jeff Johns did an amazing job and he's, done all the crazy stuff with Rebirth, it's just nice to also appreciate those books that just put you in a good mood. That you don't really have to feel like, oh, I need to read this or I need to read that. So it's kind of just relaxing to be able to open those up and just enjoy myself. And they're funny. And I mean, I really like it. And I'm really glad that I've seen other people who may not normally buy that kind of book give it a shot and enjoy it. So that's why I chose them, because they've been teaming up on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And they're married to each other.
They had the best wedding ever, if you want to believe.
It's happening right now.
Yes, and Jimmy has a history of having a writing partner, Justin Gray, for a lot of years, and now writing with his wife Amanda. They seem to work together very well. Harley Quinn has actually become one of the biggest success stories of DC in the last few years. So,
and they made it enjoyable. Like they gave her like a reason to be there. Okay, that might get me in trouble for saying that.
Oh, don't worry. We've said far worse anytime the name Scott Liddell has come up. So,
I've been informed.
Speaking of Scott Liddell, Tim, give me your thoughts on the writer category here from the panelists.
You bunch of DC Jeff Johns filleting sycophants.
That's right.
And Stephanie.
That's right.
No, I can be put in that group.
Oh man. Yeah, Scott Liddell's been doing some great work. Everything from his Uncanny X-Men to taking the reins from Alan Davis on Excalibur and putting that right back in the shitter where it resided for most of its existence. And, of course, the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, two characters that no one gives two flying fucks about, obviously.
Thank you.
Backed up by the great Gene Ha art. I almost said Gene Aha.
Take on me.
Before this night is over, I want Todd to sing us a musical version of the Orange Lantern Oath. That is the ultimate goal here before the evening has come to an end.
Yeah, we gotta work that in. So yeah,
Tim, is it your thought that Liddell is going to finish 94 strong and go into 95 even stronger, or do you think he's kind of reaching his creative zenith?
Oh no, he's only getting better from here. I mean, let's face it. We've got the strains of some grunge music here in the background here. As I talked about. No, that's not where we're.
David,
Oh, but yeah, he's. I mean, the Phalanx Covenant. Come on, guys. I mean, how pumped are you for that story?
I think that it could end up being the most coherent of all the X-Men stories.
You know who's really pumped for it?
Without a doubt.
Mark Waid.
Mark Waid can't wait for it.
He really can't. I mean,
when he vanity searched his podcast with his name, he'll be happy to come across this. Sorry, Mark. Anyway,
I just hope they put
the X-Men too. You know, that's an excellent idea. He ought to dip his toes in that pond. He hasn't done a lot of Marvel work, but I think he'd fit right in there. And gosh, that would just fit like a glove. I can't see that going anywhere but up.
What happened when Mark fell in the pool?
I don't know, Todd.
Mark Waid.
What?
Good God.
Never let it be said that Drunk Todd ain't funny.
Drunk Todd is great.
Drunk Todd is awesome.
Drunk Todd has finally taken the title belt from Green Lantern podcast Nick Duke, and for that I thank you.
I was about to say.
For that I thank you. I gladly abdicate the throne in your presence.
Or do you
Hey, Tim.
abdicate the throne?
Oh.
Tim, you know what would be awesome is if they put giant holograms on the covers of the Phalanx Covenant.
That's a great idea. Maybe
they
something.
should do that.
That was a great idea.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of that. They ought to do more with their chromium and their hollow foil technology now that their comics coloring has come such a long way, and that's a great leap in technology. So
it's great because if you tilt the book one direction, Wolverine is standing normally, but if you tilt it the other direction, he's lunging out at you with his claws.
No kidding.
Wolverine.
Yeah, that's gonna put the asses in the seats.
Just be sure that you put all that money into the cover and yet still print the interior of the books on shitty newsprint quality paper. Make sure that's a thing that continues to happen.
Yes.
Well, they're able to do that because Scott Lobdell works really, really cheap, so that they're putting their money elsewhere.
And the character assassination podcast that is the Halfies continues. Now, on to the best artist category. Stephanie, you're an artist. Who's your pick for best artist of 2016 thus far?
All right, so far, let me see. This was a little bit of a toss-up because I wanted to say Mark Brooks because I love him. I'm a huge fan, and it's really nice that he got to do the Han Solo book that I think came out this week. I'm trying to remember if it was this week or last week, but he did an amazing job.
I think it was this past week, yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I mean, normally I just follow him like on Facebook, Twitter, and stuff like that, and he's kind of like I would compare him to Adam Hughes, but he has his own style, and it was just cool to see him actually get like a bigger gig like that. And then he also
I do say that now that you mention it. I've never thought of him in that vein before, but now, yeah, I really can see it. I've liked his work and followed it not quite since 1994, but for as long as he has been producing comics, I've been a big backer, legitimately speaking here, of Mark Brooks.
Yeah, he's just great, and it's nice to see him get some more publicity this year and to really get out. I mean, I feel like everyone has seen Mark Brooks covers and knows like his style, but this is the first time I feel like he's really getting a push for his name, because those Defenders covers he did a while, like 3 or 4 years ago, were amazing. But now that he finally is doing this Han Solo book, he's getting a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? He's just getting a lot more attention. And then I wanted to also put Liam Sharp on the list because I think he's a great artist too. But number one has got to be Mark Brooks.
Hey, do you know that Liam Sharp used to draw Death's Head?
Yes, I saw that on Wikipedia.
Which said 1 and 2, I think.
Oh, very good.
And if anybody's in the market for some Death's Head comics, hit me up after the show, and I'll be glad to sell you some for a nominal fee.
Nick, everyone's in the market for Death's Head comics. You're going to have people just chomping at the bit here. This is how you're going to get your kids through college.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Did you forget that it's 1994, Nick?
Yes, it is 1994.
This is a hot product right now. Now, great pick, Stephanie. Outside the box pick, very good. Nick, let's go to you for your pick for Artiste of the first half of 2016.
I'm fairly sure that as long as this guy is working in comics, he's probably going to be my pick every time. But I'm going to go once again, as I did last year, with Andrea Sorrentino. His work on Old Man Logan with Jeff Lemire has been, without question, my favorite art in comics. It's just an unconventional style that I love every time I see it. It fits the tone of that book so perfectly. Very, very reminiscent of their Green Arrow run in a lot of ways, and it's just beautiful art. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. He continues to be among the most unique artists out there. The way he, lays out pages, the way that he conveys motion between panels, the panel transitions, and things of that nature are just phenomenal to look at. So, I mean, for me, far and away, once again, Andrea Sorrentino.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback off of that because he's my pick as well. And it's interesting because I'm cheating here because I haven't actually read an entire Andrea Sorrentino book this entire year. However, I have read all the previews. I've read several excerpts from his Old Man Logan. And to me, this guy is just head and shoulders my favorite artist in comics these days. I love just his creative storytelling. A lot of times they release these unlettered previews of Old Man Logan. And I look at it, and they don't need words. It's like the book works perfectly without that, and that's the greatest compliment to give an artist. And let's hear More Than Words by Todd Weber.
Andrea Sorrentino is such a good artist. He doesn't use words.
Speaking of, did I pick Scott Lobdell as my best artist?
You have now.
I don't know. Did you?
Did you?
I think I did. All right, moving on.
Well, never mind. We'll go on to Mr. Russell Sellers, sir. Who is your pick for the artist of the year?
Not even going outside the box on this one. Jason Fabok. For his
Justice League fame.
For his work on Justice League. I think I've said this on a podcast before because he was a pick of mine a while back. But I mean, the guy is just consistent. He is one of the best artists working today. I hate that he's not on a monthly book right now, and I'm eagerly anticipating his return, which I think is inevitable. But when you see his work on Justice League, especially on Justice League 50, it was like you take all the best aspects of other artists like Tony Daniel, Ivan Rice, and Jim Lee, you mix those, like just the best parts of all three of those artists together, and you have Jason Fabok. It's like this guy is the definition of that DC house style. I don't know that they have a better artist than him who isn't named Ivan Rice. So, and I don't know.
And he brought back the Green Lantern badge.
He did. Seeing how he does Green Lantern, it kind of made me want him drawing one of the Green Lantern titles on the regular. Though, not to say anything negative about Ethan Van Sciver, who's going to be on Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps. How welcome of a return it was to have him back. For his pages.
For Rebirth, yeah.
For Rebirth and for the pages that he did in Green Lantern's Rebirth, which were absolutely gorgeous. And that, between him and Phil Jimenez, actually, Phil Jimenez probably had the best single page in all of Rebirth with the hug between Wally and Barry. That was... What a return for an artist to DC. But, absolute top guy is Jason Fabok because the sheer body of work that he has with Jeff Johns on Justice League puts him in that elite category. So I've got to give it to him, and I think that anybody who sees his work would have a hard time arguing against it.
Todd, what about you? Your pick for Artist of the Year?
Well, I'm not going to be able to articulate it as coherently as Russell, but my pick was Jason Fabok. He drew Justice League.
Tim, let's hear your thoughts on the picks.
Okay, I'm relieved to know that I didn't pick Scott Lobdell for best artist after all. Throwing it back here, we got to go with Andy Kubert, I think, who draws easily the most realistic body language in all of comics, without doubt, and realistic costumes for the scene as well. I'm thinking particularly of the arc that he illustrated in X-Men right after Executioner Song, where they were in Siberia fighting Omega Red, and it gets a little chilly in Siberia. It stays a little chilly in Siberia, kind of a snowy tundra environment. Here we go.
Flew into Miami Beach Bay OAC. Didn't get to sleep last night. I'm back in the USSR. With Omega Red, you'll go far.
And Psylocke with her butt floss costume.
Back in the US.
We're gonna go there. Okay.
Could get a little nippy, so he threw a jacket on. One of those leather jackets that were so popular at the time. And I thought that was a nice touch. So it's the little things, the subtleties, if you will, that make Andy Kubert so great in my mind.
And that's what makes him the best artist of the first half of 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And as you guys could probably tell earlier with our Scott Lobdell discussion, there's nothing I think the group of us love more than bagging on things we don't like in comics. So with that in mind, let's hop over to my favorite category of the evening, worst comic of 2016. Greg?
Yeah. This is a category that I don't usually like being negative, but in this case, I'm going to be negative because my pick for the worst comic of 2016, I could have gone back and stretched this out even a year if I wanted to on this particular comic. I'm going to pick out an individual issue because I think it encapsulates what makes this such a bad run of this comic. I'm going with Green Lantern number 50. Now, we have said in prior podcasts that the Robert Venditti era of Green Lantern has not been bad, it's just been okay, which is fair. This was a bad comic book. It is a comic book that I think we all agree that most comics should generally have a beginning, a middle, and an end, even if it's in the midst of a longer story arc. This is a comic that kind of doesn't have any of those things. Like, it just kind of, you're thrown into the beginning of the comic, and there's no real introduction to who the players are or why they matter. There is no middle that I can determine because nothing really happens. And then at the end of the book, the comic is over, and it feels like there's at least 5 more pages to go when the comic ends. Basically, Hal Jordan for the last year has been running around wearing a long trench coat and having long hair and acting like a bad dude because, apparently it is 1994, as we have been discussing, and everything old is new again. So we've got badass Hal Jordan running around the cosmos in his talking ship with his 2 side characters nobody cares about. And then we've got Hal Jordan Prime, .0, who is the parallax version of Hal Jordan from the 90s, who got here through convoluted means through the Convergence crossover. So regular Hal and 90s Hal have been building to this big confrontation in Green Lantern number 50. Well, they have the confrontation, and as best I can describe it, they just talk to each other for several pages while shooting energy blasts. And then eventually Parallax Hal Jordan just decides, well, I'm done, and then leaves, and that's the end of it.
Sounds like the best comic of 1994. I have to ask you, Greg, is 90s Hal Jordan and his trench coat, is his head framed with like one of those window pane facial buttresses type cowls that were so in vogue at the time?
No. No, most of the time not.
That's disappointing.
There have been cases otherwise. But what's to your point, it's actually 90s Hal is the one who is not in a trench coat. It's current Hal who is in a 90s trench coat. What
the fuck? Now my mind is just blown.
Yes, so it's a horrible comic. I really don't understand what they were going for in the creation of it. So thankfully, that whole era of Green Lantern is over. The Renegade era. We're getting back to basics now, and I don't have any more to say about that. So that leaves us to who's next, Nick?
That'll be Russell Sellers. I know how much Russell loves this category, so let's hear his pick for worst comic of the year.
Well, actually, it was a pretty easy pick for me this time. That dubious honor is going to go to Mighty Thor #6. Not because it was poorly written, but because the art was so terrible that no amount of good writing could have elevated it. I literally skipped all the way to the end of the comic, hoping that maybe there would be some kind of recap to tell me what had happened, because I just couldn't bear to look at it. And thankfully there was. It's amazing how somebody somewhere must have known that people were going to look at this art and be like, wow, this is a piece of shit, and skip all the way to the end of the book. And conveniently, there was a nice little wrap-up there at the end with some Russell Dauterman art that was pretty good. I don't have anything positive to say about the art of that book. All I can say is that it looks like a middle schooler watercolor art project done by a middle schooler who has never touched a paintbrush in his life.
I'm going to jump in because, that you kind of stole my pick as well, or didn't steal it. But I'm going to, as bad as #6 was, I actually think #7 was even worse. And here's why. Those Dauterman prelude and postlude, if you will, pages that are drawn to set up the story are actually shrunk down in 7. So you get more of the terrible middle school watercolor art. Rafa Garris is the name of this artist. I've never heard of them before, and I hope I never hear of them again. It's among the worst art I've ever seen in comics, and that really sucks, especially because it made me put a book that I generally love on my worst comic of the year list. But the art, it literally, I have never encountered a book that made me want to put it down because the art was so bad.
I haven't either.
It was awful. I can't believe this person got paid for that. I'm the shittiest artist on the face of the planet. I can barely draw stick figures for my 2-year-old, but I feel like I can do a better job of conveying, a Thor flashback story with stick figures than whatever this bullshit was that was in my Thor title. So take it the fuck elsewhere.
Yes, that's about how I felt whenever I was reading it. And I was very happy that it was only 2 issues. That they said that was, I think it said in issue 6 that it was part 1 of 2, and I was like, oh, good, because if this guy is going to keep coming back around, I think I may just be about to Marvel Unlimited this title and just wait for him to be gone. Thankfully,
and this is one area where I have to kind of throw some of the blame to Jason Aaron too. That was a story that easily could have been told in 1 issue. There was no need to stretch that flashback out over 2 issues. It was padding the story unnecessarily. It felt like they were just stalling for whatever the next Thor story is going to be. I think they're trying to sync it up with something else going on in the Marvel Universe. I'm not really sure, but it just felt like a waste of time.
It was because like I said, those last 2 pages, they wrap up everything. They tell you everything that you would have read in those flashback pages, and 7 does the same thing. Like you get to the last couple pages of the book, it tells you everything that you need to know. I'm like, man, you basically told that story in 4 pages, but then had all this just shitty art throughout the length of these 2 books. And it was a complete waste. Thankfully, Mighty Thor #8 came out this week, and Russell Dauterman is back drawing the entire issue, and it was much better.
No doubt. I mean, not like you get much worse, honestly.
It couldn't. I don't think it could reach the lows that those 2 issues made it to. So I'm glad that we.
Now let's get Todd Weber's musical thoughts on the topic.
Yes.
The art by Russell Dauterman. It's better than whoever the fuck did 6 and 7.
What more needs to be said? I mean, that's pretty much sums it up. So,
and I have a little inside information here, guys, because Todd is up next on our worst comic discussion, and I happen to know that the comic in question stars a certain character, and that character is Arthur Curry.
Uh-oh.
A.K.A. Aquaman.
Been a little bit.
So my pick for the worst issue, I sent in my
drink
form.
And sing and play?
I will be taking turns doing all 3. my pick is technically going to be, I believe, Aquaman 48, because I put the whole story arc of Aquaman 41 through 48 as written by Cullen Bunn and as drawn by who I really don't care, up for nomination, because it's just awful. And 48 in particular tries to tie the whole thing up and bring it back to Atlantis, but it's a terrible Aquaman story. It's a terrible Aquaman rendering and character decision, and is a bad villain. And but it's a very lame duck issue. It's just like it's totally phoned in, and good riddance to bad rubbish. I always say that Cullen Bunn's run on Aquaman was just so bad, and he just didn't care, because as soon as he got some bad feedback from the fans, he's like, "Dude, I'm out. Bring Dan Abnett or somebody else on this book, because I'm not very good for drawing or writing Aquaman. I'm going to go back and write my Scooby-Doo comics or whatever." So
those are fun.
So Cullen Bunn, I've read comics that you've done that weren't bad, but these were really bad. And I blame you, and I blame DC Editorial for making Aquaman just not very good.
And I blame Nick for Todd's current state of inebriation.
Oh, gosh.
In the defense of Mr.
Today was going to be the day that Aquaman's going to get better. Dan Abnett came onto the book, and the book
got better.
Got even wetter. Aquaman swims in the ocean, and he talks to fish all day long. Don't you know? All right. I've become the guy at the party that everybody hates. I got a backpack on and a skull cap, and I'm singing Oasis songs. So I'll be right back.
Shout out to your sophomore year of college.
Oh my God!
It's
all three of them.
In defense of Mr. Bunn, his Sinestro was very good.
His Magneto was pretty good.
Seconded on Magneto.
He can only write characters who end in O, so it should have been Aquameno.
That's a fish pun.
Right. Stephanie, your worst comic of the year.
Okay, I'm going to have to say the third volume of Vampirella, starting with issue 1.
I didn't even know they had restarted.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that cares.
Tell us more.
It's really stupid. They took away her costume. But
Okay,
that's not the main focal point. So it's
haven't they messed around with her costume like a lot over the years?
But now it looks like a tacky Halloween costume of like if a British football player mated with Van Helsing or one of his offsprings, and then you have this atrocious, awful outfit. And the thing that I have wrong with this whole series is that, one, I will give credit to the artists. The art is not bad. But I think the writing is a total waste. It completely doesn't understand the character. This whole thing just completely irritates me, because this feels like they were like, you know what? This might be maybe Vampirella's offensive. Maybe that's why it doesn't sell. Let's just have some ladies on here. All right, ladies? Ladies. And then they just hired whoever showed up. And I'm just like, this is more insulting to me than anything else, because I love that character. She means a lot to me. And even if you change the costume, I'm fine with it. Just get a nicer costume, but try to understand the point of this character. They are rebooting all of the Women of Dynamite, which they did a wonderful job with Red Sonja. Gail Simone did a wonderful job with that, of making the character interesting, but now you've got Kate Leth completely destroying Vampirella, and yeah.
So you're suggesting there's not much quality control from the creator's standpoint.
Exactly, and it's like, but the thing is, it's Dynamite too, which...
It's Dynamite! Vampirella used to be...
Good! No.
Original costume.
No, but
oh my God.
Christ on a crutch.
Anyways, that's my big thing. I am very, I'm trying to, contain myself to not get too insulting. but it's just, I wish they would get it right, because they tried to reboot all of the female Dynamite characters, and they completely missed the point, and I think they've missed the point of all those characters, but because I care about Vampirella more, I'm going to have to say worst comic of the year.
Did you hear the good news? The good news is they've got a new writer for Vampirella replacing her. The bad news is it's Meredith Finch.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? No.
I made that up.
The outrage.
It's like, okay, you really want to get into it, because her only credit before Wonder Woman was Zenoscope, which I collect the stupid Zenoscope covers. Those dumb ones where they're $20 and it's a little bit cheeky, and I'm like, that stuff's gonna not be printed in 10 years, so I'll pick it up. But those were the books she wrote for before she took over Wonder Woman. That woman I just don't understand.
Well, Tim, do you have any thoughts on the topic?
Particularly as it relates to a certain year.
Well, not so much the year that we've been circling back to so often. What I'd like to emphasize in this segment is that, we're having a little bit of fun at the expense of some creators, being a little tongue-in-cheek, I'd like to think, and talking about some bad comics, but that doesn't mean that the people who create said comics are bad people. And in this age of death threats on Twitter, over the internet, and sending hate mail and all the vitriol, from fandom that's directed at people personally, I think we just need to get back to the core of shitty comics do not beget shitty people. So I'm going to actually throw it back to a review, a particularly bad comic from 2001. Now this review was written by Paul O'Brien. I've mentioned Paul O'Brien before. He is the writer of the X-Axis series of X-Men reviews, which started in, guess the year,
1994. Yes!
So Paul O'Brien has been a prolific reviewer, critic of many years, of X-Men comics, of comics in general. In 2001, he wrote the following, which I will excerpt from his review of X from 2001. He says, and I quote, "I try my best," and he's Scottish, by the way. I'm not going to try to emulate his Scottish accent, but he's very Scottish, so keep that in mind as well. "I try my best, I really do, to criticize books rather than creators in these reviews. I fully understand that all manner of outside factors can drag down the best intentions of any individual involved. But when you get a book this sensationally appalling, it really is impossible to vent the appropriate level of condemnation without it appearing to spill over into the sphere of personal attacks. Howard Mackey, I wish to emphasize, may well be a lovely and charming individual, fond of kittens, and a prominent anonymous contributor to charity. My criticism is directed solely at his writing ability, which at its most tactful could only be described as egregious." That from his review of Mutant X, the 2001 annual, a legendarily bad series that you really owe it to yourself to check out, because there's nothing worse than unironically just enjoying bad comics.
Was that, real quick, was that an adaptation of the television series starring John Shea?
Oh, hell no, no. This was like a spin-off series from the original X Factor, which wasn't selling at the time. So they canceled it and started Mutant X, which was supposed to be, I think, just a 12-issue maxi series kind of thing, where it's just Havoc in a different alternate reality, sort of an Age of Apocalypse sort of setup. But it went off the rails very, very quickly. And it ran for something like 32 issues. And something like. And I want to say, like, the day that Joe Quesada became editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, he maybe read one issue of this series and was like, why are we publishing this? And it got canceled, like, immediately.
Didn't Ben Morris just teach us how to pronounce Joe Quesadilla?
No, he wasn't on the list.
He wasn't on the list. How did we leave him off the list?
I think we thought we knew, or maybe just didn't want to go there.
Well, that was the day that Joey Q took over Marvel is actually one of Nick's favorite days in the history of the industry. But let's talk. Speaking of Nick, let's get to the best single issue category. We're going to try to wash the taste of the bad comics out of our mouths and get onto something good. Nick, your pick for the best comic of 2016 thus far.
In the most anticlimactic choice of this entire podcast, probably DC Universe Rebirth #1.
Yeah,
we did an entire podcast on it, for God's sake. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it anymore. It's amazing. It's the best best single issue I've read in many, many years, probably since Green Lantern 20, also written by Jeff Johns. So if you haven't read it by some miracle by now, go out and read it. It's amazing. It's worth absolutely 100% of the hype. And I look forward to picking up one of the reprints pretty soon that has the spine on it, so that I can revisit it more often without fear of damaging the comic. So DC Universe Rebirth #1 is my choice.
Yep, mine too. And Todd, I believe that is yours as well, correct?
It's DC Rebirth Day.
It was a comic.
Yeah, I picked DC Rebirth because it's the best comic I've read in maybe 5 years, not just this year, not just this half year, guys, but the last 5 years, which is half of a decade.
Ooh, the decade halfie. That's not a bad idea.
Oh, next show.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That leaves us.
My picks are all going to be the same.
Stephanie, best single issue.
See, I'm awful because I decided before to go different, but it's not really that different. I went with Green Lantern Rebirth because I was just so excited to see that Simon wasn't scrapped and forgotten about.
Yeah, I like a little Green Lantern's love here.
Yeah, I'm not really that far off because it's Jeff Johns, Green Lantern. I mean, I've got my Green Lantern ring on. I don't ever take it off. But, I have to go with the Green Lantern Rebirth because I'm just glad to see Simon and Jessica are not being completely eradicated from the universe.
They're getting a push here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like them both. I think that they're, likable characters, and I don't think they were huge mistakes.
No, not at all. And hopefully some of our Green Lantern friends out there listening, Mike, hello to you. Hopefully you'll one day give Simon and Jessica a chance because they really are cool characters. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Oh wait, can I have one more thing?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, if either Meredith Finch or Kate Leth are incredibly offended or hurt by my worst comic segment, they can DM me on Twitter and I will send them a fruit.
I'm sorry, the last part of your comment got cut off by these.
I will send them a fruit arrangement if either of them can prove that they listen to this podcast and were sincerely hurt by my comments.
Let the record show officially that offer only stands from Stephanie. It is not indicative
of no one else.
The rest of the panel.
We do not have the wherewithal nor the ability to create fruit baskets.
Yeah,
actually, if Rafa Garris listens to this podcast and is offended by my words, please DM me your address and I'll mail you a box of shit.
If that happens, I'm not sending a fruit basket. But if Meredith Finch listens to this and they're sincerely offended, I will send them a fruit basket just because I'm sure they're nice people and I wouldn't want to hurt their feelings.
There are, like the Scottish guy, the O'Brien guy said, there's no bad comic creators, just bad comic books.
Paul O'Brien.
Paul O'Brien.
But I got a little harsh there. I got a little harsh, so I feel like
egregious comics, but not egregious people.
Like Miles O'Brien from Star Trek.
Miles O'Brien from Star Trek, yes. Russell, your pick for best single issue.
Well, you know what they say, O'Brien must suffer. So that's a Star Trek TNG.
How has that reference come up twice in as many weeks?
Well, you know what? It's just a thing. We got to O'Brien, so I thought it was kind of fitting in this particular case. But in any case, I'm going to stay on theme here with my best single issue and go with Justice League 50. The climax of the Darkseid War that set up like all those threads and everything that kind of came to fruition in DC Universe Rebirth. The precursors to a lot of them were in Justice League 50. So Jeff Johns was like long form planning this for a really long time, and to see it all line up so perfectly between those two issues, I mean, it was just perfect. And the way that it's continued on from there, like if you look over, especially at books like The Flash and Titans, and even what Greg Rucka is doing on Wonder Woman, it all ties back to those threads that began in Justice League 50. So it's like, yeah, DC Universe Rebirth was the one that's getting all the credit, and it's the one that everybody looks to, and rightly so, for all these big events like spinning out of it. But the true beginning of them was Justice League 50. And not only that, it took characters that have been around for a long time, really long time, like Darkseid, and did something really different with them, but different in a good way, like in a way that was actually incredibly interesting and allows them to go forward in the context of that long-form storytelling. So it just speaks to the brilliance of this story as a larger tapestry rather than as just a this single event comic, which, while good and was a good setup, is only part of a much larger whole. So I got to give all the credit to Justice League 50 as my absolute top pick of the half year.
3, it's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's a magic number. We've got 3 jokers. What the hell does that mean? Are they different people? Or are they clones? Are they brothers? I don't know. But I think that Scott Snyder's going to talk about it in Batman All-Stars.
I noted Gerard Depardieu.
3 jokers, you guys. 3. That's 2 more than 1. What is that,
Spoiler warning!
And that's terrible.
Yes.
No, I'm glad you put Justice League on there, because that was actually my number 2 pick for Book of the Year that I referenced earlier, and really good. Also, my favorite Hal Jordan issue in 2-3 years. Nick?
Yeah, since Green Lantern 20, I think.
Yes. So,
and I would like to second what Stephanie said about Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. Jessica Cruz had one of the best breakout hero moments ever in Justice League 50. Just tremendous moment when she saves the life of the Flash. Like, she's going to sacrifice herself, and I was like, wow, what a just tremendous moment, and what a splash page from Jason Fabok when she becomes a Green Lantern, when the ring selects her. That is going to go down as one of my absolute favorite panels of the year. That one's going to be hard to top. And I'll second what Greg said. I hope that some of our Green Lantern fan brethren out there, I know you mentioned Mike, I'd like to give a little shout out to Greg Bowen and some of the other guys over on the Geek page. You know who you are. Come on now. Come on, Blogovoa guys. You got to stop hating so much. Give them a shot. You know that they're not so bad. Don't be like those folks who hated on Jon Stewart whenever he became a Green Lantern, because you all know that's how you sound. and that's really my word on it. I think that both of them are going to be huge stars with that book because Sam Humphries is doing a fine job with it so far. I mean, he's only one issue in, but it's hugely entertaining, even if I don't really understand what the true motivations of the Red Lanterns are just yet. I'm a little lost there, but
they're angry.
They're angry, but it's kind of reminiscent of a plot that actually happened in Red Lanterns not too long ago when they came to Earth. I think it was shortly after maybe either before or during the Godhead event, when they were like turning everybody on Earth angry, and like it kind of looks a lot like that, but on a smaller scale so far. Or maybe just a little bit more focused in the storytelling, but I'm sure that this is only one small piece of a much larger story, and so far so good. I get that Lethal Weapon vibe from it that Sam Humphries was talking about in different interviews. So I'm totally in. I'm going to be coming back, every 2 weeks to get the new issues.
Definitely, Tim. Your kind of wrap up on this particular topic of best single issue.
Yeah. Can I say something about DC Rebirth?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. As you know, I don't read comics. But no, I actually did go ahead and read Rebirth just to kind of see what all the hoopla was about.
What?
And, yeah, I know, right? And I mean, I have to say, I do see what all the hoopla was about. It wasn't something that I personally loved, like to the extent that a lot of you guys do, but I can see where that comes from. There is like more critical or intellectual, if I can be that presumptuous part of me that wants to say something like we shouldn't be rewarding or commending this kind of thing because it's one of those deals where it's a comic that's about other comics, you know what I mean? Where it's built upon a lot of continuity, and it can be potentially impenetrable to people who aren't well versed in this stuff, which I will say I am, again, not to the extent that you guys, so I wasn't lost, but I can see how someone coming in, this is not really where you necessarily want to get in on the ground floor. But having said that, I must admit that if Marvel were to do something in the same vein, I would be all over that shit. So it would be awfully hypocritical for me to condemn it for being what it is.
Well, Tim, what I think seems to have been happening is that DC is undergoing a paradigm shift where they are apparently, instead of trying to attract new readers, they are trying to not lose any more of the old ones, if you will, etc., etc.
We're old and bitter.
Professor Weber, when will our grades come in for the end of the semester?
Fuck off.
Well,
if there were rails to this podcast, we have flown off them.
Tim, your pick for best single issue.
You've officially dipped below the Cody line, I'm afraid.
I just wanted to talk about Rebirth a little bit, that's all. What else was I going to say? Oh, there's like a meta element to it where Barry and Wally are talking about like who the real villain is behind all of these things that have taken place over the past few years. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny to me because it's like all it's missing is that next page reveal of going, and that villain is Dan DiDio or Bob Harris.
Nice.
So there's like that wink at the readership that's kind of funny. So I'm always a sucker for anything that's like a little bit meta on that level. So
kind of like the old. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm also a sucker for anything that thinks Dan Didio is shit. So I'm cool with that.
Thanks.
The old Peter David and Eric Larson taking shots at each other comics. Tim?
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Yeah, that was one of those legendary great creator feuds from back in the day. Petty larcenry, I think, was one of Peter David's infamous puns that he's so fond of making. That one at Eric Larson's expense.
Big, hard traveling Fanboys fan, Peter David.
And that reference was, of course, that pun you're talking about was in the pages of his Miles Morales title, correct?
That he wrote, yes, for many years.
Right. Okay.
After he wrote Tom Burns' Next Men.
Well, that brings us to a much needed break, ladies.
Mercifully.
Hey.
The first half of the Halfies is coming to a end, and we'll be back right after these messages, where you'll be listening to ads for podcasts much smoother and better than ours. So
I have a question.
Todd has a
yes,
question.
Please.
Can I take us into break?
Absolutely.
Sure,
Are you taking your bus?
What's mine is mine, and mine and mine, and mine and mine and mine.
Yes.
Not yours. Not yours. What's mine is mine, and mine and mine, and mine and mine and mine. Not yours. Not yours, because I'm Larfleas.
Fans, this is not on the format. We have completely thrown this out. We've got to get things under control. We've got to get things under control here. We'll be right back.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
What's up, everybody? This is Kevin Kelly. Make sure you check out every episode of The Kevin Kelly Show right here on the Place to Be Nation. PlaceToBeNation.com. The Kevin Kelly Show. Every episode is a winner. At least we hope.
Place to Be Nation's Justin Rosero here. In addition to The Kevin Kelly Show, we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. And we now offer them to you on 2 great feeds as well. On the Place to Be podcast feed, you can check out Scott Criscolo and me on the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, with our famous Vintage Vault pay-per-view reviews. PTBN also covers current day wrestling with clotheslines and headlines, main event, Mission Indie Possible, in our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows with immediate feedback on WWE, NXT, and Ring of Honor Super shows. Relive wrestling's past with our monthly pay-per-view rewind series led by Ben Morse and the Dangerous Alliance Wrestling podcast as we dive into various subjects in the form of exercises and games. We also have sports covered too with the Sports Lounge, the TJ McClune Show, and NBA Team Podcast. On our brand new PTB Pop podcast feed, we offer great shows such as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the hard-traveling fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, and Imaginary Stories. Subscribe to both feeds on iTunes and be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows are available on PlayStation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus tournaments and more. Be sure to check out on the right-hand side of the site for details on how to support the site when you shop at Amazon and download our free Place to Be Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and Scott Keats' blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
This is Parv, and I'm here to tell you to listen and subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Only Place to Be Nation podcast network. That's the PWO PTBN podcast network, where you'll find a ton of in-depth shows done by hardcore fans. We've got Chris Zellner's 1-2 punch of Exile on Bad Street, and with David Bixenspan, a smash hit Between the Sheets. We've got Wrestling Culture with Dylan Hales and Dave Musgrave, Goodwill Wrestling and the reaction shows with Good Old Will from Texas. We got This Week in Wrestling with my man Pete and Johnny Sorrow, Stephen Graham and Tim Livingston's Pro Wrestling Super Show, Tag Teams Back Again with Kelly and Marty Sleaze, and a ton of other great shows too. And of course there's Titans of Wrestling and Where the Big Boys Play with yours truly and some dude from down south called Chad. PWO PTBN Podcast Network.
from break for the illustrious, undoubtedly soon to be canceled Halfie Awards here on Place to Be Nation Pop. And I, of course, am Greg Phillips, and we have been counting down the very best and worst in the year thus far in comic books. We've had musical interludes. We've had comedic retroactive reviews. We've had all kinds of things going on in this here podcast. And that being said, we're about ready to get to what I consider the main event award, the big one, Best Series. Now, we're going to start things off here by kicking to Nick, and he's going to tell you a little bit about this category and pitch it to the rest of the panelists. Nick? Well,
I believe Tim had something to say here, right?
Ah, Tim.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to get prepped for our second half here, and this doesn't relate to our next category precisely, but I'm looking at just the tangled web of legalities and rights in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like what characters they own, what characters that other production companies have the rights to and they can't touch, and trying to figure out what's up with Submariner, whether they can use him or if that's a universal property. And I don't know what you guys' take is on Submariner, but Nick, who's your favorite aquatic-based superhero in all of comics, Nick?
God, that's tough. Oh, man. Not counting Aquaman's dead baby that's a result of Aquaman having sex with Mera because she likes her some Aquaman, I'm probably going to have to go with Aquaman.
So, they were married, so that was, it was legal for them to have a baby in 70s DC continuity. So that's pretty good. And they, I'm just trying to imagine, do you think underwater, never mind, I'm going to change it to...
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Greg, take it away.
Oh gosh.
Let's get over to the Best Series. Russell, your pick for the Best Series thus far in 2016.
I don't know how I follow that. That's show's over, folks. Go home. No, my pick for Best Series. Hey, I'm not going to pick a DC book this time. Best Series is actually going to be Southern Bastards from Jason Aaron and Jason Latour.
Yes.
It's still, after 14 issues, it's still my favorite book that's running right now. It's my absolute favorite ongoing series because Jason Aaron and Jason Latour, both being legit Southerners, have created a book that captures some of the aspects that I absolutely love about the South, and of course the genuinely ugly side of life in the South. And in particular, the issue that just came out, which was issue 14, has this...
And in particular, this inebriated afternoon.
Yeah. It has one of the most heartbreaking scenes that I've ever read in a comic. Not to repeat some of the dialogue that's in it, because it does include a racial epitaph that I will not be saying on the air. But it's a scene where this lady who's probably going to wind up being the main character for the upcoming arc. She does something really nice for this kid who has a severely abusive father, and even though she has been super nice to him, he throws this extreme racism back in her face, just absolute hatred for her. And you can tell that this kid is not somebody who maybe even genuinely feels that way. He's been indoctrinated to this, and that is a story that is as sad and absolutely true of life in the Deep South as it gets. And that's one of those things that it's very real. It feels like a series that could legitimately be happening in real life right now somewhere. It gets into the deep-seated football worship culture that's part of life in the Deep South. some of the questionable relationships between people are just disturbing as they are hilarious. It's the kind of stuff that, if you're a Preacher fan, this will feel like old hat.
But it is Preacher-esque, but in some ways it's like Preacher is one of my favorite books of all time, but Southern Bastards is actually a little bit more authentic because Jason Aaron is from Alabama. Latour is from the Deep South. So it's a different, whereas Preacher is kind of satirizing the idea of the Deep South, this book gives you more of a, I'd say, authentic look at how things are.
It does, and it doesn't have any of the supernatural elements of Preacher. It's all very much like a legit drama series. No superpowers, no heroes, nothing like that. Very complex characters. Some that, whenever you're first introduced to them, especially like Coach Boss, who is one of the best villains in comics. Mm-hmm. When you get to his story arc and you see how he became what he is, I would say that he has become one of the most sympathetic and maybe even empathetic villains in all of comic history.
Really? Because I've only read the first trade of Southern Bastards, and he reminded me so much of so many of these small town football coaches that are big deals, in the communities. But
when you see that from the outside, and that's what the first art for Coach Boss very much is an outside looking in picture of him. You see him from afar, you only see the surface of him, so you can't help but see him as a villain. There is no other way to look at him. He's, he is the bad guy of that first arc. But when you get to his backstory and they start doing the flashback to show you how he was raised and show you the path that he took when he was in high school to the present day, to show you how he became what he is, it is a story that will be, I think, uncomfortably familiar to a lot of people living in the South, especially if you grew up in football culture. It's a story that is as shockingly disturbing as it is very real. So that is, but I don't want it to make it sound like the book is just completely disparaging the South, because it's not.
No, not at all.
There are a lot of aspects of the book that look at some of the parts of Southern culture that I absolutely love, like the devotion to family, the like genuine trust. Like whenever you make a friend in the South, they're typically going to be like your friends for life. That's something that it really plays up, and it really hits home for me. Like whenever I'm reading this book, I'm like, man, this is all of this. These stories didn't exactly happen to me, but I know people that had this happen to them. I know people personally who have told me these stories about their lives, or I've seen these stories play out. So it's one of those that just speaks to me on that deeper personal level. So I can't help but say that this is the absolute best ongoing series, and I'm very excited that FX has picked it up and optioned it for a TV show, because it is tailor-made for that network.
Yeah, me too.
If you like reading Southern Bastards, you should go find the trade collections of Scalps. Jason Aaron's writing about reservations instead of people in Alabama.
Well, if I wasn't sold before, now I know I've got to check this out.
Todd, hit us up with a little bit of the Kid Rock version of singing about Scalp.
Please don't.
No, please. No.
Please don't.
Never mind. I've been outvoted.
Please don't ever play that song ever again.
I'm going to take host privilege and tell a little funny, well, not really funny, but just a story about Scalped. I've never read Scalped. However, I own a version of Scalped. Let me tell you why I've never read it. I worked at a radio station. The guy that runs the radio station, great guy, awesome dude. However, he is, shall we say, fairly conservative. He went through his version of Scalped and inked out every profanity throughout the book. So when I'm reading it, instead of reading actual dialogue, I'm reading You little, and then a bunch of black ink lines. So that's why I have Scalp.
What?
All right, I have so many questions. Well, I don't have that many.
Gosh.
After this little...
In anticipation of giving you the book, or did he do this because he was personally offended, or in case?
Here's my understanding is he did it just out of his own understanding of, or his own desire of the book, because he would get books sent to him, comped, to review on the air, and he gave it to me to review it. And when I got it, it had all the ink marks in it. So
wow,
I'm assuming that he just inked it out as soon as he got it. So,
to each their own.
Yeah, that's all you can say to that. So if anybody out there in podcast land has a non-edited version of Scalped and you want to send it my way, I will hook you up with my mailing address after the show. Obviously after the show, since we're recording this well ahead of time. So,
speaking of which, I also have not read Scalped, but in talking to people who've read both that and Southern Bastards, I've been informed that Southern Bastards is actually a spinoff of it.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was like, wow, that's really interesting to me. So, yeah, go read both. If you read Scalped, you'll love Southern Bastards.
Now, Stephanie, what is your pick for the best series of the year?
Okay, can I just add one little note on that subject, though?
Sure, absolutely.
Sure. It's very strange because I recently moved to the Monterey area, and my local comic book store they shrink wrap every Vertigo and Image title and mark it as adults only.
Well, that's aggravating.
That's really
like
weird.
The Madonna sex book and cellophane or whatever. Like,
yeah,
it's
Fables.
Really going to be that risque?
Fables is shrink wrapped and marked.
Shitting me.
It is so strange what people find needs to be adults only. But yeah, off that subject, my pick of the best ongoing series is going to be a book called I Am Hero from Dark Horse Publishing. And the one reason, I wanted to pick a comic, but I felt, I just recently read this, so I felt it was something that I really want to encourage, because I recently went to Fanime last month, which is a fan-held anime convention. Normally I don't go to anime conventions, but this thing was a slide. But I heard the head of Dark Horse Manga Publishing pushing this book, and the main premise of it is it's a manga creator who's 35 and pretty much down on his luck. His stories are constantly not accepted to be published, and so he's going through a career crisis, he's going through a personal crisis in relationships, but then all of a sudden, zombies. And he's one
because of course.
Because of course, and normally, when I first heard this concept, I rolled my eyes and I was just like, zombies, great, again. But the thing I really did end up enjoying about it is that it's set in Japan, and the thing is, gun laws are a lot more strict in Japan, so not that many people own guns there, and it's harder to get control of that. So it's really interesting to see a character who's one of the few people in Japan who can actually owns a gun, and his reaction and the people around him. It's so culturally diverse than how people react in The Walking Dead. That's why I really wanted to give this book a push, because it's a different take on the zombie apocalypse, but it's not too cliche. And I really love the artwork in it. The guy that does it draws what I feel is realistic people. And it's not just... It's not cat girls. It's definitely not cat girls. That's why I chose it.
What you got
there? In Japan, zombies. Oh
my god. I'm marking out over this one right now.
That was a very popular song. My Hero from Dark Horse is being published in omnibus form, where it's 3 manga volumes technically released in one. Volume 1 is out now, and I believe Volume 2 will be coming out within the next month or so.
Very cool. It sounds like an interesting premise. I wonder if AMC is going to option it and cast a bunch of British actors to play the Japanese characters.
No, that'd be so awkward.
It'll be the Ghost in the Shell outrage machine on Twitter all over again, Greg. Can we please not do that?
They could just get that one Asian chick from the Harry Potter universe to play every character.
It would be super awkward if they pick, like, this guy's art is so realistic that they can't pick people that are too pretty or it just wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because he draws, like, average-looking people, which is really rare in Japanese comics, I feel like. Or at least popular ones. Like, they're very... I mean, come on. I'll be honest. I read Prison School. Anyone who's familiar with that book knows what trash it is. But I enjoy trash. So...
We all do in our own... I mean, Tim Capel and I are huge fans of Beverly Hills 90210, so...
And...
Melrose Place.
Melrose Place, yep.
At some point or another, we all got the raccoon eyes. So, there you go.
I think we're ready to move on to Nick's pick for the best series.
If my pick doesn't get a musical interlude, I don't know what will. And now I'm interested to hear this one. So to continue the theme of no DC titles being selected as best ongoing, I'm going to go over to the Marvel side of things and actually pick a book from their Star Wars publishing line, and I'm going with Darth Vader as their as the best ongoing book in all of comics, and it's been that way in my opinion for the better part of a year, maybe a year and a half now.
No, that can't be. That can't be because a year ago you said Thor was the best comic in comics.
Is it going on a year? Well, Thor ended not long after our Halfies last year, correct?
That's true.
Thor God of Thunder anyway, and then it was replaced by the adjectiveless Thor, which was okay but not as good, and it's been subsequently replaced again by the Mighty Thor, which isn't as good.
I love that we can say adjectiveless Thor in 2016. That's just shows how far we've come.
It does. Anyway, Darth Vader, fantastic exploration of that character, and kind of what his motivations and what his mindset was like between episodes 4 and 5 of the original trilogy. Also casts a whole new light on some events from the prequels by showing you his memories of the way things happened. That book's getting ready to wrap up here in August, but if you haven't read any Star Wars books, go out and check out Darth Vader. I don't think you'll regret it. That's Kieran Gillen as the writer, and I can't remember who's on art right now, but it's been absolutely fantastic for anybody who has even a mild interest in Star Wars.
I've enjoyed what I've read on Unlimited.
There it is.
Darth Vader is Nick's favorite pick of the year. Son of Skywalker has grown strong in the Force.
And that brings us to Todd Weber. Todd, your pick for the best series of the first half of this wonderful year.
Brian K. Vaughan has spun out a great, terrific episode of space opera entitled Saga from Image Comics. And over the past couple, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe it's not even that long, Saga has been outstanding, terrific. It's kind of like Star Wars, which we just were talking about, combined with Romeo and Juliet. So if high school adaptations of Shakespeare tragedies in space are what get you off, I recommend Saga. My friend Steve Willey really likes it, and I like it too. And because I just think it's really consistent. Brian K. Vaughan has done an excellent job with it for a long time. They're on, I think, issue 31, 32 right now. And that's it. I'm done. Saga is really good.
Yep. I've read the first 3 trade volumes, and it's very, very high-level stuff, as Nick can attest to, I believe.
And you got to give it up for the Fiona Staples art on that book.
Oh, yeah.
It's an absolutely amazing series. So, yeah, I'm reading it in trade as well. Really, really great book. I would also say that it's got a good bit of the Game of Thrones feel going on, too. So if you're a fan of any one of those things that's been named, you should be reading Saga.
Totally. Who else is left to go? That would leave me for my pick for best series. I'm cheating, and I'm going with something that was actually a mini / maybe maxi series. It is Superman, Lois, and Clark by Dan Jurgens and Lee Weeks. This is a limited series that is about the pre-Flashpoint, post-crisis Superman, the one that I grew up with, basically, who is now married to Lois, and they have a child, John Kent, or in this book, John White. And it's basically about how they adjust to trying to stay hidden in this new universe and raise their family together. But Clark, being Clark, can't stop himself from being a hero and can't stop himself from wanting to do good. And in the midst, there's a lot of cool twists and turns. You see that John becomes the new Superboy. He gains powers like his dad and is struggling to adapt to those. They introduce several new characters in this, or new takes on old characters, particularly a new villain who was really cool. I just thought it was thrilling. It was the book that I most looked forward to on my monthly list, other than Justice League, which was very inconsistent coming out towards the end. And it was just a book that always left me smiling at the end. You know, it's traditional, old-school superhero storytelling and had a really good heart to it with the family dynamic. So that is my pick for the book of the half year, the series of the half year, rather. Tim.
It seems like one of those books that should really only be taking place on the fringes, as like a mini series that just throwing like the older readers, not older age-wise, but you know what I mean.
You're
throwing
right.
us a bone.
You mean bitter and jaded?
Yeah, that's what clearing that up.
You're so old.
You'd think it's just throwing guys like us a bone, and girls like us a bone. But now we're seeing that this is the one true property going forward. So it's kind of surprising that they have run with this concept now.
Yeah, I agree.
I was particularly
me.
surprised by that development.
Yeah, I was surprised and very happy because this was like a regular Superman book that I could really get behind, and it kind of reminded me of why I loved the character so much throughout much of my life. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on the category as a whole, and maybe your pick for the best ongoing series of whatever year you choose, really?
Still doing a little bit of research for the next segment, so I think I will just leave it at...
I think you cut out on us, Tim.
He really is going to leave it.
Tim, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
There you go. He's back.
I guess that worked out nicely then.
Fantastic.
For supplemental reading on Superman and Lois Lane, I recommend a short story entitled Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex. Thank you very much.
Oh,
I'm familiar with that, which you referenced, sir.
Hey, wait. Do we need to do a dramatic reading?
Oh, Lord have mercy. All right.
There may be some people who are not familiar with this essay.
I have a feeling there are a lot who are not familiar with this essay.
Mercifully so.
Best comic book. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's just for mature people only, not like me.
Not like us. Yeah.
That one's definitely wrapped in cellophane.
Oh, Lord. All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back to the award categories. And let's get to the burgeoning area of comic book television. It feels like every comic book property under the sun now is starting to get a television presence. Marvel and DC are throwing them out there. We've seen Vertigo titles get thrown out there. We're seeing Image get titles out there. So that being said, Stephanie, start us off with your pick for the best television show of the half year in the world of comics.
Because the Invincible television show has yet to happen, which I hope eventually one day happens and is amazing. I'm going to say iZombie, because I know you guys are like huge on Green Lantern, but I have to say iZombie is the one show that I really do like to enjoy, and it gets better every season. I mean, the romantic stuff, meh to me, but I really just enjoy that the lead character is like kind of like Veronica Mars, if Veronica Mars toned it down a little bit, would be the best way to describe it. But I just enjoy iZombie. All of the characters are great. It's not like I have to sit through several seasons of wishing Laurel was dead.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
There's like one character who came up like the past season or so who I wish death upon, but she got it a lot worse during this season. But she was only around for one season, so that's nice. Like I said, I didn't have to wait several seasons for Laurel to croak. But I love the show. I love all the characters. Everyone does a fantastic job. I believe the main character is Rose Iverson. And just to be clear, it has absolutely nothing to do with the iZombie. Okay, it only shares a name with the iZombie comic book and some Mike Allred art. But otherwise, it's not really a straight adaptation. But I really do enjoy that television show more than... Oh my god, I feel bad because you guys love Arrow. But Arrow is just so hit and miss with me. And Flash is nice, but I binge watch it. iZombie is a show that I watch weekly when it comes out.
I've heard the comparison to Veronica Mars a lot. Isn't it by the same showrunner as Veronica Mars?
It's Rob Thomas, and you see it's Rose Iverson, and I'm trying to remember. There's
come on, Todd! You can't let that go.
Todd,
Rob Thomas.
Let a Rob Thomas reference go. Come on.
She said, "Babe." Let's see. Damn it! I wasn't ready. And there.
Ha ha! Huh! Hmm.
Aha! No.
She says, "Baby." 3 a.m. I watch iZombie. Said, baby, it's on CW right on the Wednesday. Because you're so smooth.
And Rob Thomas does make an actual several appearances in iZombie.
The Rob Thomas?
The Rob Thomas makes
Yes.
several cameo appearances in iZombie.
Why?
Because they somehow make it work, and it makes me actually like the guy. Which congratulations, after all these years, can respect the guy just because of the television show. But I have to say the best character is Ravi, who is probably the main side supporting character, and he is played by Rahul Oh gosh, I think we need to do one of those.
We need to get Ben Morris on.
Younger sidekick.
I believe his name. I think his last name is pronounced Coley.
Coley, okay. Rahul does a fantastic job. He's great on Twitter. He plays Magic the Gathering, which is entertaining. He's pretty funny with his tweets, but yeah, he does a great job on that show. And it's just a fun show to tune into every week. And I feel bad because I like sitcoms. I mean, Golden Girls and Murphy Brown for life, but yeah, I just enjoy that more than the Arrow and Flash.
You've made a big fan in my friend David Sunday, who that's one of his favorite shows on television.
And in Justin Rosero.
Yes, other people that love the show.
I've been watching iZombie since it started, and yeah, I'm a big Ravi fan, and Rose McIver is absolutely adorable as Olivia. So that's the only guy that really kind of rubs me the wrong way on that show is Robert Buckley plays Major, mostly because I think that he can't act his way out of a paper bag, but that's just kind of prototypical of the beefcake characters that they have on these CW shows.
Yeah, but I think the thing with him is he's kind of like, when you watch a CW show, there's just kind of oh god, this is awful. There's just certain characters you have to accept, and I feel like it does kind of warp my perspective. Like, when I sit through Arrow, and I have to deal with Laurel, and I have to remind myself, there's no getting out of Laurel with a CW show. Just like there's no getting out of the major character on a CW show. And I wish they would move past that, but it's just something they do.
Credit to the actress that plays Laurel. She's actually much better as a villain than she is as a hero character. She did a really good job as a demon, recurring demon on Supernatural for a while.
Another CW show.
Yeah, another CW show.
I believe it's David Cassidy's daughter.
I think so, yeah.
My God. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are we going to get the Partridge Family theme song? Because I totally
Please, Todd.
Here it comes.
Hello, world. It's a song that we're singing.
Come on,
make happy.
A whole lot of loving is what we'll be singing. We're doing. Okay, it's been a while.
I had a daughter, she was Black Canary. She couldn't act, but she was pretty cute.
I wish her life
her.
What is going on?
Wonderful. Todd, it's your turn to pick the best television show. Go ahead.
My pick for the best television show is Flash on Tuesday nights on the CW.
And tell
Why
us.
is it my... Because it's better than Arrow, and it's only slightly better than Legends of Tomorrow, which came narrowly second. But Flash introduced Earth 2 storyline this season, and it was pretty great. It was kind of the way they brought in villains and doppelgangers all year. And yes, they telegraphed the ending where Jay Garrick was really a doppelganger of Henry Allen, who had just died in the penultimate episode of Flash season 2. But it was pretty good. It was a great show, and it was easily the best.
Apparently, they didn't telegraph it enough for some, but that's another story for another time.
There was really people who didn't pick up that he was that when he says my mom's maiden name was Garrick. Like that was as soon as we knew that was going to happen. Oh, you're talking about Mark Waid. I'm slow. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just talking about Shaft.
Oh. Shut your mouth.
And not to block you or anything, Todd, but that was also my pick for best television show. And, it was better than Arrow this season. Though Arrow wasn't as bad as some people made it out to be. But, yeah, Flash was better. And I was pretty close. I think second place was Legends for me as well. So, yeah, we're kind of on the same page there. In terms of what makes for a good superhero show. And Flash hit pretty much all the buttons almost exactly right, save for a little Deus Ex Machina or Machina, however it is that you want to say it, for the finale. But otherwise, strong setup for season 3, and Grant Gustin continues to be, next to Melissa Benoist, Supergirl, the most likable lead character on television. Yeah,
he's great. I think everybody likes him. Nick, what is your pick for the best comic book television show? The Halfies.
Also The Flash, for all the reasons that Todd and Russell so eloquently stated. When both shows are at their best, I feel like I'm usually more of an Arrow fan than a Flash fan.
Yeah, me too.
The problem was that for a large portion of this season, Arrow was not at its best, not anywhere close to its best. Quite possibly at its worst, the worst, as bad as it's been since the show started over the last half of the season, really. So for me, it made Flash an easy choice. Legends of Tomorrow I also enjoyed, but I thought it took a little while to get going. The last 3 to 4 episodes of Legends of Tomorrow were phenomenal, but I thought all the Earth 2 stuff, the Zoom stuff before the reveal of his identity and all that, they did a great job of just building him up over the course of the season. And, so I went with The Flash by a pretty wide margin, honestly.
Yeah, and I almost went with The Flash, but I ended up going with a show that really took me by surprise this year, in that I thought it would be good. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did, and that's Legends of Tomorrow. I actually found myself enjoying this more than any other show I was watching by the end of the season. And I think it's partly that I'm a sucker for a good team dynamic. I love team comic books, always have since I was a kid reading X-Men. And I think this show really captured the team dynamic well. It gave everybody something to do. It made their interactions really interesting. I thought the actors all did a really good job, particularly Sarah Lance on there. I can't remember the actress's name. Katie Lotz, yeah. And the Captain Cold, their interactions were great. Brandon Routh did a great job as the Atom. who's based the Atom on Legends of Tomorrow is kind of like Blue Beetle is in the comics. So very cool character there. Just a lot of fun. I just had a lot of fun watching that show. Excited to see where it goes in the coming seasons. Tim, your thoughts on the best comic book TV series of 2016 and our picks thus far?
I kind of wish that Jessica Jones was eligible for nomination, even though it wrapped up late last year.
Mm-hmm. It was excellent.
Because I really enjoyed the hell out of that in a way that I did not expect to. And she's getting a second season, which is great. Really looking forward to it. There was a lot going on in that show, a lot of layers. In my opinion, the best villain that we've seen from Marvel. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to. There's a lot to unpack with Kilgrave. But anyway, not to belabor the point. Nobody's mentioned Daredevil so far, season 2. I don't know if that's
because many of us haven't finished watching it.
I was going to say, probably a lot of you haven't either watched it or finished it yet. It seems like it's kind of flown under the radar this year for whatever reason. Without getting into spoilers, I think I liked the first half of the season more than the second, where it was really focused on Daredevil versus the Punisher. Like, that's where you really thought this season was heading, and that's what a lot of it was. But towards the back half, it goes in a different direction that, I'm trying to be tactful here, reminded me a little bit of the worst aspects of Arrow, which is a show that I've tried to get into, and hit and miss really describes my relationship with that show. By no means was Daredevil season 2 bad. It was just, I wish it was more of the one thing and not the other. And I think people who have watched the season know what I'm talking about. I think I do kind of wish that it had played the Punisher, Frank Castle, as more of an out-and-out sociopath villain, which it looked like it was doing at first. And then they did get into more of the anti-hero spin on that.
Yeah, and can I jump in? Because I think we're actually on opposite pages on that aspect, because I think that's one of the things that bugged me about particularly the first appearance of the Punisher on there. I'm not trying to spoil the episode. I will just say, I'm not going to give away the setting, but he puts innocent people in danger.
Are you talking about the hospital?
Yeah. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, because I don't feel like that's something that is compatible with the Punisher's origin.
Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way at first until I got to thinking about it and was like, if we're going for like the hyper realism that this show wants to like aspire to, then that's something I can kind of see happening. And that is a really vile thing to do, and that's not a character that's easy to sympathize with. But if that's the direction that they're going to take him, then I hope they really commit to it. And that's all I'm going to say on that without spoiling. But I understand John Bernthal is getting a Punisher series now, spinoff.
Yeah, which should be really cool
in the Netflix universe, which should be pretty good.
Right.
I think in another world, Frank Grillo from the Captain America movies, who plays Crossbones, could play Frank Castle, and John Bernthal could play Crossbones. Like, those two actors could be really interchangeable in those roles, which is kind of funny to me. Mm-hmm. But John Bernthal, he really killed it as the Punisher. The issues.
And Tim, when I'm with you, you do take me away to another world. Now, there's a deep reference that no one here is going to get.
Deep cut, yeah.
It's the 80s all over again, and we're watching syndicated sitcoms.
Oh, my God.
Where's my flip-up sunglasses?
Oh, man. But anyway, the direction they took the character in Daredevil Season 2 with the Punisher notwithstanding, I did really like John Bernthal's performance.
He's really good.
And I also like that they were willing to make their protagonist, Matt Murdock, kind of unlikable. He does some things that if you're one of his colleagues, one of his friends, you're going to call him on his bullshit. And Foggy does that. Karen does that. And it sort of puts you more in their shoes than his. And that was something you don't see often on these shows. And I'm glad they were willing to go there.
I was glad that they were also...
Default,
I finished the season as well, and I was really glad that they were willing to go that direction with Matt. That they didn't really do it in the first season, but in the second season they definitely showed that why he is almost incapable of having a really meaningful relationship as far as like a dating relationship. This guy is the poster boy for undateable douchebags, and you will see exactly why as you get, if you haven't gotten to that point in the season. But some of the just stupid decisions that he makes, and it's not out of character or anything. It's absolutely a character of Matt Murdock. It's captured perfectly. So I don't fault them at all for portraying it on screen. I'm just like, this is why this guy is where he is, and it's all because he makes the dumbest possible choice he could. And
it's framed in a way where you're not supposed to be rooting for him. Like the show is actually saying, yeah, he's fucking up here.
And on the one hand, you're rooting for him to be successful against the villain characters, but in his personal life,
as an ass-kicking superhero,
but in his personal life, you're like, wow, you're kind of a dick, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually just finished episode 5 last night, and again, I don't want to spoil too much, but we may have more to say about Daredevil a little bit later. But Nick, what's our next category?
So, with all this TV talk, we're actually going to drill it down a little bit and talk about our favorite individual television episodes of the half year. So, Russell, what you got?
Favorite episode would definitely be The Flash, The Runaway Dinosaur, the episode that was directed by Kevin Smith. That episode did not feature Barry in his Flash uniform and for like over 95% of the episode, and yet it hit every beat of what the Flash character is about in a single episode, like taking us through the aspects of Barry's life to define who he is at this point. And it featured this incredibly touching moment between he and the like kind of ghost image of his mother while he's trapped inside the Speed Force. I mean, he had a good moment with, or good moments, I should say, with the various like hallucination versions of different people, including like his father and with Joe West. But that scene with his mom, whenever they explain what the runaway dinosaur was, and it pulls him back to his childhood and gets him to that place where he seems to like be moving forward with his life, which is something that the episode illustrated that he hadn't actually done up to that point. I thought that was, just the best thing that they could possibly have done on that show. And what a performance from Grant Gustin. The guy, I don't know, he's always given good performances on this show, but after watching that episode, I was like, the Emmy nominating committee needs to stop being snobby about CW shows and give the kid a nomination at least. For God's sake, he is nailing this. And
yeah, he's criminally underrated.
I'm going to need you to stop talking about Grant Gustin because it's very triggering for me.
Are you getting a little turned on over there, Tim?
I am.
I'm sorry, buddy, but
I think that
getting a little hot around the collar.
Hot under the collar, are you?
What was that, Stephanie?
I said he's one of those guys that's too good looking.
I know.
Like, there has to be something incredibly wrong.
Unfairly good looking, right?
Like, yeah, there has to be something wrong with him, and I'm just waiting for it to like come out that like he either like eats puppies or like kicks kittens.
God, where are we going with this?
He kicks kittens for fun. He's too good.
Yeah.
Like, he's too perfect. There's something wrong.
I know. I've got it. Looking and talented. It's just not fair.
Yeah, and a nice person. He seems nice too, and it's like there has to be something wrong there.
Scientology, baby. He's a Scientologist.
No,
is he really? No, wait, no, not.
No, not please.
I'm just thinking, what would it take to get both of you guys like?
We thought Todd was on the Google machine. It was like, guess what, people?
That would do it.
I can't even spell Google at this point, guys.
If he was a Scientologist, I'd feel bad for him, and he'd have that like I want to fix him quality to him.
Siri, open Google.
Siri, Google Aquaman.
So, I had an idea. What if like the character of Garth grows up and is allowed to become Aquaman alongside Aquaman, and you could have a monthly title called Aquaman and Aquaman, starring Aquaman and Aquaman?
And then you bring back the kid from the 70s, Aquaman Jr.
Aquaman. Yeah. Was that really his name? No.
No, it was Aqua Baby.
Yes.
It was a wonderful time.
Dead Aqua Babies.
I'm not drinking anymore, you guys. Nice try.
Nick, your favorite.
I'm some kind of one-night stand.
I was going to suggest that you just go ahead and punch 911 into your phone, Todd, just to be on the safe side and be ready to hit send as you feel yourself passing out.
Nick.
I'm about to after all this Grant Gustin talk, so thanks a lot, guys.
Just stand under a fan, Tim. You'll be all right.
Just imagine
if you're gonna stand under a fan with a noose around your neck, make sure you have a spotter.
And the David Carradine joke has made its way to the podcast.
Oh,
good God!
What?
How do you think I've been making it through this podcast?
Jesus.
that was an autoerotic asphyxiation joke.
Got my AC cranked down to like 60. Got the ceiling
Why don't
fan
we just
running.
throw In Excess in there as well? What was his name?
Ooh,
Michael Hutchins.
Yes.
Yep.
Elliot Smith.
Maybe some Depeche Mode at this point.
Oh man, I feel like we're choking this podcast right now.
When is Morrissey gonna die?
I'm pretty sure it's dead by now. We smothered this one back before the break.
So,
what are we doing?
Nick Duke, your favorite television episode of the half year, and for God's sake, make it quick.
It was all. I will also go with the Runaway Dinosaur, and the only thing I'll say about it is everything I love about this episode. It almost perfectly, when juxtaposed with the season finale, illustrates my issues with the season finale. This is an episode about Barry moving forward, about making a decision in his life that, the life he leads now is something he has to come to accept. And then in the season finale, they have him undo all of that character development he's gone through over 2 seasons. While I admit Flashpoint's going to be cool to see realized on screen, from a character standpoint, it does not make sense for this version of Barry Allen. And so I'm going to use my selection to bitch more about the season finale. Thank you.
Runaway Dinosaur. Todd, your pick for the best episode of the half year.
Runaway Dinosaur was the best. It was a story about Barry Allen and Iris West.
For all you Soul Asylum fans out there, all 10 of you.
Barry's mom's performance was almost the best. But, yeah, he used the Speed Force. And his costume was distressed.
Yeah!
Man.
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Oh, man.
That leaves us with who's left? Oh, yeah, me. Me and Stephanie are left. I'm going to go first. I'm going to say my favorite episode, which is episode 4 of Daredevil, Penny and Dime. So you see, Tim, I'm not afraid to make a Marvel pick. Penny and Dime, I think, is the best episode I've seen so far of this season of Daredevil. I'm only 5 episodes finished, but I think it's one of the best episodes they've ever done, actually. To me, it was as good as anything from season 1.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, then yeah, it probably is. It probably is the high point of the season.
It's the one that ends with Matt and Punisher sitting by the graveside.
Spoilers.
Yep, that'd be it.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to say any more, but anyway, it's a great episode. I don't really know what else to say about it except that it's very emotional. The acting from Bernthal is just remarkable, and of course everybody else is great in the episode too, but it's primarily those two who get to act off of each other. Excellent fight scenes, which is still one of the hallmarks of the series. So yeah, that's my favorite episode of any comic book show this season. Stephanie, your pick.
I'm gonna have to say Salvation Army, which is the season finale of iZombie for season 2. I have to say, the one reason why I love this episode, it was the first episode where I convinced someone to go back and watch all of the other episodes. My boyfriend finally sat down and watched it, because he refused to watch it before until he saw this. And there's such a large turning point in this episode that it kind of shifts everything around. That's a little bit more drastic than the season finale of season 1. But I also felt that it was still lighthearted and fun. So I have to just say they ended season 2 with something where it's like, I look forward to season 3 and I have a positive outlook for the rest of the series. And that's why I chose that episode, is just because it's getting me hyped to keep watching instead of just doing that whole... usually around season 2 is where some shows hit their slump. Mm-hmm. And this is something where I'm like, okay, I have a positive outlook for season 3, and I see that it also is managed to captivate other people I know into actually going back and rewatching the series so that they can start to watch in season 3.
Very cool. And it's also cool that it's getting a season 3. Sadly, some shows don't ever get the opportunity. Like my beloved Human Target that I've been praising the last few weeks on various podcasts.
Or Young Justice.
Or Young Justice.
Oh, why'd you have to go there?
It's a recurring thing. We've been going there for about, 5 years now?
Yeah.
I thought there was a thing through Netflix. If we watch enough, it'll come back.
Here we go. There's been something for 5 years. If you do this, like if you stand in a certain location and hold a magnifying glass up to the sun, the show creators are somehow going to get us the show back. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. We've been talking about getting the damn show back for 5 years.
Dini's new book, if I buy 10 copies of Paul Dini's new book and everyone else buys 10 copies of Paul Dini's new book, can it magically happen?
No, if we all buy 10 copies of Paul Dini's new book, we'll just get 10 more seasons of Ultimate Spider-Man, and nobody wants that shit.
No. No, that was bad. Why does that even happen?
Wow, it's like Nick has really been hanging out with me too long. I'm rubbing off on him in just a horrible, horrible way.
What do you mean? Well, Stephanie hates all
I'm usually the one just ranting about this random
I don't
bullshit.
hate it. I just think that it could have done a lot more, and that there were little instances of positivity, but it really restricted itself to be... It could have been better.
Agreed.
I think we're all just super the wrong demographic for that one.
I'm not a... Yeah.
Yeah, well, and also we need to get Green Lantern the animated series back as well and get it a much deserved.
No CGI.
And Wolverine and the X-Men while we're at it.
And Wolverine and the X-Men.
And
Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yep.
And Justice League Unlimited.
I think if you erotically asphyxiate yourself while hanging from a ceiling fan, that's what it would take to bring these back. From what
if that's all it takes, it should have been back 5 years ago. For God's sake.
Wait, did I survive it? My only question is, if I survive, do I win?
Gosh,
yes.
What a waste it's been,
I think it's different for girls, isn't it?
I don't know.
All right.
On that spectacular note.
Nick, wait. Before we get to our next category, is Mr. Depardieu in on his line yet? Hello? Nope.
Todd, why don't you know how to play the French national anthem on the guitar?
Sacre bleu.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how no episode of The Walking Dead from this past season could possibly be anyone's favorite pick for anything?
You know, that's a really interesting point, Tim.
Fuck that show.
I have to be honest. It slipped my mind. I still watch Walking Dead regularly, but I actually forgot that it happened. Mm-hmm. I think the season finale pissed me off so much that I've now retroactively forgotten the rest of the season.
Well, Greg knows that, like, pretty much when it came back from the mid-season break, I had major issues with the characterizations. Like, it seemed like there were massive jumps in character development they chose to do off-screen, and it was just the weirdest writing decision I've seen from a show, that like characters were just magically changing their entire outlook on things in the course of a mid-season break, and I had major issues with it the entire time.
For instance, the entire arc of Daryl, who is, cliched enough my favorite character on the show, his entire character arc that made him my favorite character, which was he starts out as this borderline villainous loner, and over time he grows to become one of the gang, and then arguably the most important member of the group for keeping everybody together and the value of family. They come back from the break, and all of a sudden he's back to being a quiet loner again who doesn't trust people, which is the exact opposite of how he was like 2 episodes before that. So yeah, strange season. There were some good episodes, but
in the stuff that they've been doing with like basically trolling their audience with these
fake deaths,
fucking asinine cliffhangers that aren't even really cliffhangers. It's, hey, a thing happened, but we're not going to really show you what that thing was. We're just going to string you along. I mean, people are complaining about this stuff not because they don't like cliffhangers. They're complaining because they aren't really cliffhangers. I mean, a good cliffhanger is you do the thing, and then it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. What happens next? And what they've been doing is, hey, what happened? We're not going to let you in on it. We'll just let the characters in on it.
Yeah, and like is Glenn dead for 5 episodes?
Mm-hmm.
And then
to the point of taking his name out of the credits. I mean, come on.
And then to the point of, oh look, it's a magic dumpster that happens to be exactly the right height off. I'm not. This is off topic. I'm going to.
I shouldn't have gone there, but I just something about it just set me off.
And I say that, and I still enjoy the show from time to time. Like, for instance, I watch it every week. They had some great episodes, but then they do stuff like the season finale, and they piss me off. But anyway, that leaves us. Nick, what's left?
Yeah, as we've discussed, comic book television. Now we're going to discuss comic book film, and we're going to talk about our favorite comic book films of the year, and this should be interesting. Tim, what you got? Because this is one you can actually contribute to.
I've got Longing, Rusted, Furnace, Daybreak, 17, Runaway, Dinosaur. I'm talking, of course, about Captain America Civil War, which I think I've said enough words on between the Glenn Butler podcast Spectacular and
Sellers Points,
the show I just did with Russell and Ben Morris. So if you really want to hear what I thought about that movie, just listen to those 2 podcasts. It is far and away the best comic book film of the year, and maybe the more I think about it, the past 3 years, I don't know.
Guardians. Since Guardians, man. Since Guardians.
I think I liked it better than Guardians.
I think I did
Sacre bleu.
I don't know.
Yes!
Gerard is here.
Gerard's finally arrived. Mr. Depardieu, I loved your performance. I haven't actually ever seen you in a movie, but I do. I enjoyed the idea of you must be in a movie.
Oh, thank you so much. We surrender.
What?
Freedom prize.
Now,
France jokes. That's what we've
talked about.
Russell,
what?
War.
What? Your pick.
Wait, we skipped Stephanie.
Russell, what is your pick for best comic book movie?
I'm gonna surprise Nick with this one. Captain America: Civil War.
What?
Heyo.
Kuiper Jr. like what from that?
That was. Thank you, Greg.
I was hoping for that reaction. There it is. I know everybody was expecting me to say Batman v Superman, and yes, I did go see that movie 4 times. And the longer that I've had to sit with it, just like I said on the latest Sellers Points podcast,
which can be found right here on Place to Be Nation Pop.
Yes, and it features the first ever comic book podcast appearance on PTBN of Mr. Ben Morse, and of course Tim was there too. But
he sure was.
The thing is, I said on that podcast that over time, the more I've thought about Batman v Superman, the more it has kind of come down for me. So now at this point, it is a 3-star out of 5 movie for me, whereas upon second viewing of Captain America Civil War, it got that extra half star to go to a 5 because that movie hit all of the comic book beats just right. And
it had so many things working against it that just should have fallen.
I'll say that it had so many new characters that it was introducing that all had significant parts to play in the film, that it felt like it could have just gone completely off the rails. Like it could have been a complete and utter train wreck. But I will be damned if Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther wasn't the highlight of the movie that made me want his solo film right now. And Tom Holland was as close to the incarnation of Ultimate Peter Parker as I've ever seen.
Yes.
That nailed it. They hit all their beats exactly right. Great fight scenes. Whoever choreographed this thing has created like the single best superhero film fight scene I've ever seen in that airport battle.
Yeah, I agree. I said the same thing leaving the theater.
Yeah, whoever mapped that out is a genius and needs to come back and do another one of these movies. Just the emotional payoff, and the payoff of all the build up that kind of really started with Winter Soldier, which is still my favorite MCU film, even with Civil War being there. But all of that intrigue and all that mystery and story beats that they started there felt like it actually got paid off in Civil War, with the table being set for the next phase in Marvel's cinematic universe. And that's something that is incredibly difficult to do when you're trying to get that payoff and close out the big story beats and arcs from your previous phase and still move into the next part, but yet have the audience feel satisfied that something actually happened in this movie. And Civil War pulled that off. And while, I'm still a fan of Batman v Superman, while I'm still very much looking forward to the Ultimate Edition, and especially seeing where they go with Justice League, that movie didn't pull off what, in the same fashion, what it was trying to, that Civil War did in like pretty much every level. I have nothing negative really to say about Civil War, whereas I do have a small list of complaints about things that could have been and should have been done better in BVS. So, Civil War is a pretty easy choice, even with I did like Deadpool and I liked X-Men as well, but they weren't no Civil War. Sorry.
Reach.
Which is what I always say about the War of 1812. It was damn sure no Civil War, but no, I agree. And just as a spoiler alert, everybody on the panel picked this movie as their favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in my 2 cents, and I'm not going to talk much, and I'm going to leave it to the rest of you to talk about. The only thing I want to talk about is the fight scenes, because the Russo brothers have added an element to the MCU that was missing. And I love the MCU. I've liked every single one of the movies without exception. The one thing that has been missing has been really good fight scenes. The first Avengers movie had it with but on a different scale, like a CGI scale. It wasn't until The Winter Soldier that I thought that a Marvel movie had a really good fight scene in it. And now they go out with Civil War and they put out the best fight scene in the MCU, in my opinion. And so I'm really excited that these directors understand action. They know how to let their choreographers do what they do. They were wise enough to get Georges St. Pierre to help them out on Winter Soldier. So I really enjoy.
You can tell what the hell is going on.
Yes, none of the jumpy. This is not a knock on the Bourne. I love the Bourne series. The Bourne series did it great, and everything since the Bourne Supremacy was the second one. Every movie since the Bourne Supremacy that's been an action movie has tried to rip off the shaky cam effect to establish, oh, you don't know what's happening in the fight scene. It's lazy. It's overdone. Enough of it already. Bourne did it great. Occasionally it works good in like a Bond movie or something. If you're doing a superhero movie, you don't need freaking shaky cam for that. So anyway, I loved it. Thought it was fantastic. Stephanie, your thoughts on Civil War?
I mean, there's not really any competition. I really hate to say that, but it's kind of true. My favorite part was Tom Holland, because as a lady that is attracted to men, Andrew Garfield was very nice to have, just as Tobey Maguire was before. And there was something that was a little bit weird because Tom Holland was young when he was first announced. That just made me feel weird as a lady over 18. As an adult lady. So I was kind of selfish and a little bit like being a douche about it, where I was like, okay, he's a little young. That just makes me feel awkward. But then it was nice to see Peter Parker he's a younger, and he's written like a younger character.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
In
it a
fairness,
lot less creepy.
Tom Holland the actor is like 20, I think, right?
I thought he was like 18. I thought he was like 17 or 18.
I don't think he's that young. I think he is, well, let's get down to it, legal. If that's where you're going.
Tim is violating the MPAA here.
No, I'm trying not to.
And to be fair,
I legit think he's like a young 20-year-old.
Get away from the ceiling fan.
No, I'm not hanging from the ceiling fan on this one. I'm trying to help you out here.
And to be fair, it's not just girls who are sexually conflicted, because you got to remember, Marissa Tomei is playing Aunt May, so that means all the guys are like one step away from sexually fantasizing about approximately 125-year-old Aunt May from the comics. If you can make that tangential leap
right now that I'm looking it up. Okay.
Well, yes, Tom Holland is 20 years old.
The Golden Girls was a thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they picture it.
Probably Aunt May has probably always had her fans.
Oh,
well,
which now includes Tony Stark.
Yeah.
That's what the comics need to do. Is they need to have Tony Stark hook up with comics Aunt May.
Todd, can you cue up a little Dust in the Wind for us, please?
Listen, Deadpool had a thing for VR.
Aunt May's who? Eat your wheat cakes, Petey. They're so good for you. Doc went there early in the 200 issue run by Jerry Conway. Dust in her.
We went there. Okay, guess we went there.
Yes.
Dud.
Remember, Tim, what I said about you violating the MPAA here? Never mind.
I don't think we can. We can't release our ultimate R-rated director's cut now. I think if this all makes the show, it's going to be.
I think we've hit NC-17 by now.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was "Dust in Her Hooch" by Gerard
Depardieu. Gregory, I have one thing to say.
Yes.
I would have made a much better Batroc than Georges St. Pierre, the sweaty little pig who cheated against BJ Penn 2 times.
Cheated against BJ Penn 2 times. That's another story.
Shit.
Anyway. Now,
I'm done with you. I'm done with you.
Todd, do you have any thoughts on Civil War?
Well, no, I'm not even going to say Civil War. Captain America: Civil War was I liked it a lot. It was better than Batman versus Superman. which is not all that bad, but I would say it's still a middling movie. I'm really excited about the Ultimate Edition that's coming out this week on digital. And Deadpool, though, was a strong second place choice for me, even though I forgot to put it into my rankings. But yeah, Deadpool, if I look at the big picture, Deadpool is a little bit better than the other movies, which I have seen them all at this point, which is crazy. X-Men Apocalypse was not as good as I had hoped, and I'm kind of sad because I was hoping that it would continue the momentum of both First Class and Days of Future Past. So, but Captain America Civil War, for all the reasons you guys just talked about, the excellent action sequences and storyline that made sense, and the introduction of great new characters and the hope for the future of the MCU gives that one the nod.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Nick, your thoughts?
Very briefly, to piggyback off the discussion earlier about where exactly you would slot it in terms of how it ranks to the rest of the MCU, I'd say for me, kind of like Russell, just below Winter Soldier, but I'd put it, I think, above every other non-Avengers entities. I think the first Avengers and Age of Ultron are probably my two favorite MCU movies, but Winter Soldier,
really?
Civil War.
Age of Ultron.
I'm huge on Age of Ultron. Greg and I have done, we've talked about this a little bit. I like Age of Ultron a lot. I think, to be very brief, because we don't want to get too far off topic, but I think part of the charm of that first Avengers movie is resting so heavily on that moment when they first assemble. And there's no way you're going to be able to recapture that magic in the second one because you've already seen it. So what you have to do is dig a little deeper and try to find, some character development for these guys and try to actually, torture them in some way. And I kind of like seeing my heroes put through the ringer. And so I liked the idea of them having to be confronted by their greatest fears. I thought James Spader is one of the rare, very engaging villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I really dug Age of Ultron more than pretty much everybody else did. But anyway.
And I need to revisit, in fairness. Yeah.
And I like to see my heroes forced to watch The Ringer with Johnny Knoxville. So
while attached to a ceiling fan.
Your words, not mine. But no, I'm glad to hear everybody enjoyed Civil War. It's one of my favorites in the MCU slate for sure. Excellent movie. But let's move along to a more general topic here, and that is the state of comic books, the state of the industry, as I wrote it in our format sheet that has now been burned to the ground. So this is basically a topic about looking at the landscape of comics as a whole, DC, Marvel, what have you, and just kind of a brief snapshot of where you see the industry right now and where you see it heading in the next 6 months to a year. Tim, we're going to start off with you because you've had to go last on a lot of these categories. So what do you see kind of when you look around the state of the industry right now? Are you excited? Are you nervous? And where do you see things 6 months to a year from now?
A little nervous, a little more nervous than I have been in recent years. And I say that because with DC, we've got Rebirth going on, which has been, from all accounts, pretty well received, but in a lot of ways feels like, and I don't mean this disparagingly, even though it's going to sound like that, it almost feels like an admission of defeat, where they tried to really make the grab for new and different comic readers through the whole DCU initiative, which was wrong-headed in a lot of ways, but also kind of a commendable effort. I don't know if they went about that the way they should have, but they gave it a shot. And I guess they were finding that they weren't amassing a readership that was going to be a new readership that was going to be sustainable or foundational in the way that they wanted to. So they've decided now that this is who our audience is, the people who have been with us all along, the diehards, the hardcore DCU fans. That's who we're going back to, and that's who Rebirth is really for. And that's fine. I mean, as long as you can actually decide who you're targeting and who you're going after, having a plan is better than no plan at all. So it remains to be seen whether that's going to work out or not in their favor, but for better or worse, that seems to be the way that they're going. The other side of the equation, you've got Marvel. And if you take away the Star Wars line, the Star Wars books, they're not really setting the world on fire either, sales-wise. They've got a lot of really good quality titles right now, and good creators. But is that really enough to keep them afloat? It's all I'll say is it's a really good thing that Disney is in the picture and is pushing Star Wars the way that they are, and that they've maintained a standard of quality on the Star Wars books.
An incredible standard of quality. An
incredible standard of quality, and they've been really disciplined too. You know, Nick, you mentioned the Darth Vader solo series, which was selling like gangbusters, and they actually have canceled it. Obviously, that was not because of sales, but because the story is finished.
Yep.
Yeah, just for story reasons, and that's clearly not the last we're going to see of ongoing Darth Vader comics in the Marvel, under the Marvel banner. But that particular series had kind of reached an end point, so they decided to wrap it up rather than get to the point of diminishing returns like you see so often with long-running series nowadays. So, here again, I think they know what they're doing, but it is a little bit shaky. And I know all I've mentioned are Marvel and DC, and I know they're not the entire industry, but that is what a lot of the industry rests on as far as the litmus test of how the big two are doing. So I guess I'll leave it to the rest of you folks to talk about some of the other publishers and to get your perspective on where we're headed.
Very good. Stephanie, your thoughts?
It's really weird for me to comment on this. My issue isn't so much with the industry. I'm like Russell mentioned, it's like they have kind of admitted defeat with the publishers, and I'm kind of glad they're changing things, but my thing has always been, I've always been a stickler for local comic book shops and how they are affecting the industry as a whole, because I feel that a lot of local comic book shops don't run like an actual business. I feel like it's almost like, it's weird because I've worked at a store that's an old boys club, and I've also worked at a place that, I really don't like using this term, but I don't know any other term to use. I guess feminazi store, which I really don't like that word, but I have no other way to really describe it. So it's really weird for me to go to those two type of stores and then move and then come to. I worked at both of those stores. Now I don't work at any comic stores, but I moved and I just have a store that does not stock anything. They sell out of everything on Wednesday by 1:00.
Yeah.
And they don't have any trades. They don't have any archival stuff. It's like, I just want the local comic book stores to really, and the people that want to start to get into the comic book industry, to really stop and think about where they're going, what they want to focus on, and actually go into this business with a business mindset about running a successful business and providing options to your customers and, running it smoothly as expected from other retailers. So it's just...
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Because I think I can't speak for anybody else. Yeah, I can't speak for anybody else, but I've seen that as well, and I think a lot of it is people that get into owning comic shops are do it because they're fans, and they don't really have the business mindset of, thinking in advance. And I've seen it my whole life. When I was a kid, one of the things that drove me away from buying comics was the local shops in Mobile where I lived. One was owned by an asshole, basically, and the other one never kept anything in stock. Where I'd be, I was 13, 14, and I'd go into the shop on the rare occasions I get to go, and there would be nothing that I was looking for. And so I'd have to go to the asshole shop, and then I'd leave because he made me feel like I was a creep for daring to touch a comic book, So
it's one of those deals where none of the publishers are going to come out and say, we are holding a gun to the head of the retail brick and mortar distribution channel. But if they were to go away, then, they're on board and all in on digital now, really. So it's really on these retail outlets to sink or swim. They are more on their end than they've ever been. And it's a shame because there are a lot of really, really good retailers, and I certainly built a relationship with the last comic store that I was a really frequent customer to for years and years. And, I'd hate to see that go away. At the same time, like you said, there are some bad actors in this process who don't have a business savvy and don't have a business plan and, by all rights should go away. But it's kind of a fine tightrope that they have to walk now.
And Diamond Distributors doesn't.
It's awful. They're evil. They're the devil. Get your. Okay, past the point of censorship. Get your shit together, Diamond, because I'm, as someone that had to used to deal with all of Diamond's screw ups every week. Todd, you know that. It's just. It's ridiculous to me. It's you want to reach out to people, you want to provide this thing, but because you're not encouraging there's just no standards. There's no standards amongst comic book shop owners, and it's I went from a place where it's you couldn't say anything critical to every little thing is just is evil and bad, and it's just it's been so crazy to me. And then to just go to a place that has no selection, but it's
a shit show because Diamond knows they're the only game in town, so they're like, okay, we're the wholesalers, so that's what the retailers are stuck with, and they're really between a rock and a hard place where they are having to be subservient to Diamond essentially while still trying to run a business like anyone else. So what can you do?
I think there just needs to be a standard of don't be an old boys club and don't be those people that judge anyone that doesn't like things that you. The thing is, I went from a store that it's I don't want to trash talk them because I learned a lot from them and I really do value the experience. The first comic store I worked at, I really respect everyone there. I like everyone there. Unfortunately, it just did not work out. I still like all the people there, but there were some people that it's just, they had a traditional mindset that did not really welcome a new crowd or a diverse crowd, would be the best way to put it.
Doesn't do themselves any favors when they have so many other factors working against them.
Yeah, and for me to say something just did not help my point. And then to go to a place in Berkeley where it's it's run by even though there were it was owned by a guy who was honestly one of the best people I know, his store is practically run by a bunch of 20-something girls, and one of them eventually lightened up and was not as bad, but it's just, there was this mindset of, we find that offensive, so we're not going to carry it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just kind of and so it's you couldn't get things from them unless you went to the right person at the right time, but don't buy it in front of them because they'll have a little comment about how awful it is.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than going to a comic shop and having the guy behind the counter make fun of the book that you're buying, that you're about to put money into his pocket for,
Yeah.
So I've been through that before too. But Russell, your thoughts on the state of the industry going forward?
Well, I can echo some of those similar sentiments to Diamond, but I think they covered that pretty well. And I'll say this for DC Rebirth, because I think that it has injected some life back into this fledgling sales year for comics, because comic sales have not been that great this year.
No.
As compared to the last couple of years where they were actually way up. 2016, needed a shot in the arm. And it is true that DC Rebirth feels like it's aimed at the more traditional DC audience. But the thing is, there are a lot of new fans who are coming to this as well. And I think that where the New 52 was maybe trying too hard to get a different kind of fan and new fans to give DC Comics a chance, Rebirth feels like it's kind of succeeding in that area, because it's saying, okay, well, this is what people loved about our characters all along, so why don't we re-emphasize that and make books that are friendly to people who want to give them a shot without making it also feel like older readers aren't also welcomed at this party. It was finally like they figured out how to open both doors to the shop, if you will, instead of trying to funnel traffic through one side. They've opened it up. They've opened it up, and it makes it feel like there's room at the table for everyone, and that's something that has been missing from DC for a long time. Now, on the Marvel side of things, I am not enthused about this retread of Marvel Shattered Glass Image Now that's coming up. All I've seen from Civil War 2 seems like it's a confusing, convoluted mess, and not at all the fast-paced action story that the original was. But that's not to say that Marvel doesn't still have some really good books going for it. There are plenty of their solo hero books that I think are done very well. It's their team books that are still problematic and need something to reinvigorate some love for them. But as Tim alluded to a little earlier, their Star Wars line is second to none. So if the sales continue on that, they're going to be fine. They're going to do perfectly well for themselves. They just really need to do something that doesn't feel like it's just one event that leads to another event, which has been the business model for their superhero line since the original Civil War. It's just been one event after another. There's a summer event every year, and you can say
at least one, sometimes more than one.
Yeah, sometimes more than one. And you can say what you will about DC events being good or being not good or just whatever, but at least whenever I get a DC event, it feels like there's some consequence to it. It feels like there's some end result. But with Marvel, it just feels like it's the precursor to the next event. And that's what I think really needs to change, is like not relaunching your books back to number ones over and over again. It's get on a path that allows for some kind of forward momentum in your overall storytelling that doesn't also rely on a gimmicky event or a big banner headline like retreading Civil War just because you had a hit movie of the same name at the same time. Move forward in some kind of progressive way.
All is not lost. It just it's one of those things where you can't blame them for doing what works and reaching for, I guess I could call it the low-hanging fruit. I do
it gets sales, but whenever you look at the top 10 sales for this first month of Rebirth and look at all those titles versus how the Civil War titles are selling, Rebirth has blown it out of the water.
And that's not unexpected, I don't think. It's just one of those. We're on the precipice right now of what feels like the beginning of something that's going to be a major new direction and status quo for DC in the same way that the New 52 was, 5 years ago now. So it's hard to say long term where we're headed. I definitely wish the best for them. And, Marvel's kind of, like you said, trucking along, doing what's worked pretty well for them sales-wise since, the original Civil War, or even going back to, House of M. And you would like to see them mix it up a little. I'm with you there, and just hoping for more diversity, which is kind of a cliche thing to say, across the line, which we're getting some books in that vein, but they don't often sell. They're not the ones that they get a lot of buzz and they get a lot of good critical reception, but they're not the ones flying off the shelves. So that's something I wish would change, and I don't know what more the publishers could do to change that.
That's a really good question, because one of my favorite books for the past year was Steve Orlando's Midnighter. And I thought that book was one of the single most entertaining things I was reading month to month. And it was, I think at the time, it was DC's only book that featured an openly gay male hero. And it was a tremendous book that didn't treat any of the stereotypes, didn't get into any of that. It was just an awesome kick-ass action book with a good mix of crazy sci-fi and espionage. It was like, James Bond crossed with Star Wars and Star Trek in a lot of ways, or maybe even, I guess, Stargate would actually be a little bit more accurate. But it was just this fantastic book that had such low sales numbers every month. Like when the sales numbers would come in and I would check those out, I'd just be dismayed at how few copies of Midnighter were selling. I mean, it was near the bottom of DC's sales chart. And I was like, it can't be because people are seeing like negative critical reviews, because it's actually getting really great reviews. And I touted the book many times on Twitter, saying that it was absolutely and truthfully so one of the best books I was reading. But it did not move the needle. That's really disheartening for me as a fan, looking at the fan base for DC, that they're not bothering with this really great book, and hearing some of the like offhand opinions that would be levied through from my local comic shop to even a few folks on Twitter. I was like, please tell me that this is not the state of our fan base. I really hope it's not, because that is not making me feel very confident about the company moving forward. I mean, the company is going to continue to be more progressive than the fan base, and that's something.
Yeah, you can't say they're not trying. You can't say that.
And DC absolutely is, because they've also now made Batwoman the co-lead of Detective Comics, and she actually is the co-lead. Like, she has as much panel time as Batman does, and she is an openly gay character, and that's something that I've really thought that DC deserved a little bit more credit for in their efforts to be more diverse and to have those characters featured more heavily. And the sad part to me is that the fan base is the one who seems to not be responding.
And when you change established characters, it turns into this big shitstorm of controversy, where at the same time, hey, new books, new characters aren't, well, yeah. But it's like, everyone goes, hey, don't change established characters. Let's get some new characters who are
which is a bullshit argument.
Or Muslim or female or whatever it is, and you go, okay, they do that, and then you don't buy them. They don't sell.
Exactly. So that's why it's the biggest bullshit argument I've ever heard whenever they say stuff like that. Because it's like, you could create that new character all day long, but you put that book out, nobody's going to buy it. I mean, how are you supposed to create a new character and use that as justification whenever that book is not going to sell and you know it?
Right, but we have to remember, I mean, like, we all, I think, sit here and agree with the idea of diversity is a good thing, right? Like, nobody is sitting here and saying, we want less diversity. But at the end of the day, it's a business. It's a dirty fact that it's a business. And if these things don't sell, what is DC supposed to do? Publish things that aren't making money?
No, absolutely not. That is not the argument at all.
Right, I'm just saying, like,
they're going to have to cancel books that if it's only moving, like, 11,000 copies, or worse yet, in some cases, like 9,000 copies a month, and it's supposed to be a major part of your superhero line, yeah, the natural thing there is to cancel the book, and you cannot fault DC for doing that. And I would never fault the publisher for that, because I feel like they are pushing those characters, and they are trying to get them out there, because, I mean, Midnighter had a very good crossover going with Grayson, which was a decent selling book, and was also critically well received, but it didn't move the needle worth anything on Midnighter. And for my money, I don't know what it takes to convince some of these folks that I think are actually kind of beyond convincing to try out these characters, because they have it in their minds that it's just too offensive to them. And
Stephanie, you made a good point.
Like with the comic book, like the local comic book shops, don't make people feel scared or harassed to go into a store, whether they want to get off to Midnighter or Vampirella. Don't make them feel bad. Don't be a douchebag when you're checking them out. Actually do your job, and if you're the employer, make sure your employees don't suck. Like,
yes, good points.
It's that simple. Don't suck at your job. Any other job, if I were to check people in at the hotel and be like, you look like you'll make this place dirty, I'd be fired. If you buy Vampirella or Midnighter, and I'm like, I know what you're going to do with this when you get home. Like, no, you can't, like, it's ridiculous.
It's inexcusable. It really...
The behavior that's allowed in local comic book stores is ridiculous. And I'm just like, I'm an adult now. I worked at like 3 different stores at this point, and I'm just like, you all have a common thing where, I mean, luckily the first store I was at was pretty good about, like, you know, the first location of that one company I worked at was very good about stopping people if someone said something and being like, hey, don't do that. Second location, not so much. But from what I've heard, things have gotten better there, which is why I'm not going to name it. But I mean, other places, it's just like, are you kidding me? Why are you talking like this to people who are trying to give you their money? It's like, if you want comics to continue to be printed, you need to get over your pet.
Hello?
It's stupid. Hello?
Yeah, sorry, you cut out on us for a second there, but I totally agree. But no, I think these are great points being brought all around. Certainly, it also speaks to. I think there's another issue of new characters in general just not selling worth anything. Well,
I was going to say it's like against all odds. The one example who's seen to have really risen to the top is the new Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan.
She's amazing.
Miles
she
Morales
is, right?
as well.
I love her.
Well, yeah,
Miles Morales, another good example.
Miles is great.
Mm-hmm. And so it's like these prime example of critically acclaimed, really well-received books that normally in the comics market that we live in would get canceled in 8 issues, but against all odds, they're succeeding. They're selling. The publishers are standing behind them. So what's the secret to their success? Maybe it's
quality.
Quality, but quality doesn't always do the job.
Yeah, Midnighter was high quality and it didn't work at all.
But I think part of it maybe is the creators behind these.
Hey, Russell.
I totally agree.
What if Jim Lee drew an arc of Midnighter? How would it have sold?
Great idea.
Possibly it would have been great, but that would have required Jim Lee to actually get a book out on time. So, that it being delayed by 3 or 4 months would have wound up killing it.
That's an amazing point, though. I have been, Russell knows, I've been making this argument for probably since we've known each other. I've never understood why comic companies don't take, and sometimes they do, but as a generalization, A-list creative talent and put them on C and D-list characters. We've seen it work with Jeff Johns before in C-list characters. Take Brian Michael Bendis and put him on insert character here that you want to sell. You're throwing his name out there. I don't know if he's still the #1 box office writer for Marvel or not. But
they put him on Guardians, which Guardians of the Galaxy, say what you will about the movie being as successful as it was, but film dollars very rarely translate to comic dollars. Right. But Marvel wanted that to be a winning property and something that was going to be really visible and successful. So what do? They put their top selling writer on that series.
And then a couple of years ago, didn't Marvel have Warren Ellis on Moon Knight?
They sure did.
Yes,
also, that's the definition of a C or D list.
They had Bendis on Moon Knight when he was relaunched, like back in 2006 or 7.
Yeah.
So
take your A-list writers and artists, even if it's just for one arc. Pair them up on an arc on, Midnighter, for instance, and instead of and no disrespect to Steve Orlando, who's great, but he doesn't have a name in the industry. Let's take Jeff Johns off the board. Take Scott Snyder or Jeff Lemire, somebody like that, and then take as an artist Ivan Rice or a Jim Lee or somebody like that that's a box office artist. Or Brian Hitch. Or
just take somebody who gets it. Like, who's writing Miss Marvel? It's G. Willow Wilson, who is a tremendous creator, but isn't really known for being this blockbuster talent who moves a lot of issues. But she clearly is someone who gets the character and gets the point that she wants to get across.
Well, she created Kamala, and the thing is, like, she is. I look at her and I look at that whole the whole Miss Marvel situation, and I say, this is the exception to the rule by all accounts. Like, because it's got an unknown artist, an unknown writer, and a brand new character, and yet it is a huge selling book, and that is mind blowing to me, because it's like, who was this before she came along and did this book? Like, how did this book suddenly become this like A-list title from Marvel?
Because it stands out from the pack, I think.
And the thing is, and it's using an established character name. It is putting a different person in the role with a different power set, but she is still calling herself Ms. Marvel, which would bring to mind Carol Danvers.
Who is now Captain Marvel.
Who is now Captain Marvel, which is also a fantastic book.
But if you go back, Miss Marvel was very heavily pushed, at least in mainstream media. I was asked to review it. I wrote a review of it, and what happened? People looked into the book and saw that it was good, and they stuck with it. And it's been able. It was able to succeed in the market because initially so many eyes were put on it. They did not. If we're going apples to apples, they didn't do that for Midnighter to the same extent.
Over
at DCville.
Well, and there's an authenticity. There's an authenticity and a sincerity to it that I think you might not get if you're just having someone who's just a straight up good writer, like a Jeff Lemire and I'm not disparaging these guys by any means. I'm complimenting them, like a Jeff Lemire or a Tom King. Somebody like that who's really, really good in their own right, but wouldn't be a great fit for the type of book that's going to really move the needle, as Russell said, and accomplish what these publishers should be going for when they're chasing and trying to diversify their line to resemble the world that we actually live in.
And in the converse of the argument of having A-listers on like C and D lister, like A-list creators on C and D lister comics, it also stands to reason that maybe a good way to help an up-and-comer to really get their name out there is to put them on a more high-profile book. And speaking of Steve Orlando, he's going to be launching Supergirl later this year. And if there's one book out there that DC is going to have to get right, given the high profile that Supergirl finally finds herself in, it's going to be that one. They've got to hit that out of the park. And given everything that we've seen, or that I've seen anyway from Steve Orlando, I think they're going to succeed. It looks like it is adopting a somewhat similar tone to the TV show, and putting her kind of in a similar setup situation, but bringing in some of the classic elements, or just some of the elements that happened to her more recently. So I'm hoping that what that book is going to do is finally elevate Steve Orlando's name to the level where if they tried to go back to Midnighter again, it might sell better the next time around. Or at least give
Best
them
of both worlds.
And I'm a broken record here, but if Midnighter was given a long time to succeed, right? How many issues was it out for with Orlando writing?
12. It was given a year.
Okay. Well, what if DC had a subscription service that, say a couple issues in, somebody could check it out for no obligation and then get hooked, and then, I'm a broken record here because I say this every single podcast, but
eyes on the comics.
Are you suggesting they should have a DCU, perhaps?
No.
And Nick would pay double for it.
Double. He's been on record as saying that, yeah.
Todd, what about you? Your state of the industry as it stands today, looking forward.
I'm finding I've spent more money on comics in the past 2 months than I had in a long time.
Same
so
here.
Ultimately, that can't be a bad thing for the comic industry. I mean, it was their. This is DC maybe just going for it one last time, or not before they die or struggle or anything, but knowing that this is what they have to do to get people like you or me who were down to maybe 1 or 2, 3 monthly books to be buying books again and throwing the cash their way. But is this throwing the baby out with the bathwater, though? Can this sustain? Can we keep reading 2 issues of Aquaman? Excuse me. I have to take this noose off for a second. I'll be right back. 2 issues of Action a month, 2 issues of, I mean, this is a big investment financially for a lot of people if they're going to be reading more than 3 or 4 books. And they're not doing twice a month with everything, but they're bragging about the $2.99. And so far, the quality of the books has definitely been up there to warrant that. But, I don't know anybody who's going to be buying the entire line of DC Rebirth series. It's as far as every new monthly book that's coming out. I want to talk about Image a little bit. Image has been creator, by definition of the company, they've been creator friendly and creator owned. And books like Saga keep churning along, Southern Bastards, and there's some reason for optimism. I really like the series Witches by Scott Snyder. I don't know if anybody else checked that out, but that trade is outstanding.
Yep, read all of it. It's good stuff.
And good. There are creators that are just doing Image and getting by, and making a healthy living, like Ed Brubaker.
Yeah,
he's got Rick Remender and Jonathan Hickman now too is pretty much mostly Image these days. And it seems like the new model of Image is just get one trade down, have your artist write and your creator write and draw enough issues to get one trade that you can get your comics out in 5 months and then have that trade shipped right away the very next week, or sometimes as we were talking last pod, the same week, and get those books onto the market. And then what happens is there becomes a demand. There's a buzz. They sell these books. They license them very quickly to a TV network, and that hopefully will grow things too. So, I mean, Image is always going to be the outlet for the creators who are just fed up with the big 2 and can get stuff out there. And there's always going to be great comics coming out from Image. At least I hope so, as long as our friend, Walking Dead man, Robert Kirkman, is still
Invincible Man too.
Yeah, that's true. I'm still, he's
so good.
He's Outcast is going to be coming out pretty soon, so we've got to take a look at that. But as long as he's in charge of Image, I think things are going to continue to be at this standard.
And they do a great job with getting their trades and collected editions out. Hint, DC and Marvel.
Yeah, and that first trade of any Image comic tends to be very affordable, usually under $10. Yep. So, you're collecting 5 or 6 issues of a $3 comic book for under $10. The math doesn't add up, but it does add up because it gets you hooked. It's very, very friendly for the first-time purchaser. So
Image gets it so much more, I think, than Marvel and DC do about attracting new readers. Affordability matters, price point matters, but then also doing whatever it takes to get eyes on that product. Because if you can hook somebody with one issue and get them to want to go back and read the rest of that series, you've done a good job. So yeah, I agree, Todd. Image is doing a great job continually. Nick, state of the industry in your humble opinion, as always.
Well, I mean, as you guys have discussed a little bit, Rebirth seems to be doing pretty well, both commercially and critically. I'm interested to see what effect that has on other publishers within the industry. I mean, especially in terms of Marvel and DC, we know the 2 companies liberally, rip off from one another constantly. I mean, it's bound to have some sort of impact on what Marvel is doing, and I'm wondering what that is. I almost think, in a way, Marvel might be uniquely positioned to really take advantage of this rebirth sort of storytelling. If they were able to marry elements of Rebirth with elements of their more diverse publishing line, I think we could really see the best of both worlds, later this year and into next year. So,
Nick, it's like I said, say what you will of DC Rebirth, but if Marvel were to do something like that in the exact same vein, I would be all over it.
I mean, and so would I for certain characters. And I mean, it could work, but at the same time,
I'm not even saying that's the right move for the industry or anything. I'm just saying if they did it,
right,
I'm definitely the audience for it.
And that's what I'm saying is I feel like, if we're looking at it from a business perspective, not wanting to avoid the issue of possibly throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which some people think DC may have done, keep the characters like Kamala Khan, keep the characters like Miles Morales, keep the characters like, or Captain Marvel in her new role. I mean, keep a lot of the things that have really worked for you over the last 5 or 6 years, and maybe find a way to move some of your other more traditional characters back to a more recognizable position that the larger pop culture community might be aware of, those people who are only seeing the movies or whatnot. So I think there's a lot of potential for Marvel to kind of take some cues from DC, but do it in a different way that really makes them, enables them to like I said, become the best of both worlds.
Yeah, both companies, I think, ideally can be, when they're both at their strongest, they're both unique. There are things that Marvel can do that DC can't do as well. There are things that DC can do that Marvel can't do as well. I think the industry is at its best when both are firing on all cylinders and focusing on what those universes are. DC has always been about legacy, has always been about the things that Rebirth is kind of bringing to the forefront, which I don't see as a regression, because legacy is what gave us a lot of these characters that people identify with. John Stewart, Bart Allen, the new Kid Flash, Wally, the original Wally for that matter. Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown as Robin. That's what DC has been built on. Marvel has been built on more realistic, down-to-earth human stories and takes on characters. And I think that both universes can be successful, distinct from one another, but obviously take cues. And I'll just relate my state of the industry now. I'm just personal anecdote here, as Todd referenced a minute ago. As of about 2 or 3 months ago, I was down to only pulling 3 monthly comics, and one of them I was about to drop because I was not enjoying Green Lantern at all. I can't. Part of that was financial, because I just can't. I can't buy $4.99 and $3.99 books in massive numbers. But I will say that
is a problem we haven't really touched on. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about there.
So Rebirth so reignited my interest, and the pitches for these new books coming out reignited my interest to the point that my pull list throughout June and July is in the neighborhood of 21 comics right now, which has never, ever been my deal, because I always, and Tim, I've talked to you about this before, I've always preferred to read and trade. I just think it's the best way to read. But I've been so interested by these that I've been getting in on the ground floor, and I think the quality has been really high. The local shops have been selling out, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And then and also some friends of mine and Russell's who have never read comics before regularly are now reading comics, largely because of this initiative. So at least anecdotally, it's been a huge success, and I'm really excited about where it's going. Like I can't lie, like the whole like Civil War thing doesn't do much for me from Marvel, and I'm not really a fan of their perpetual event cycle. But there's a lot of solo books that do appeal to me in Marvel. I wanted to get the new Punisher #1, Becky Cloonan and Steve Dillon. Just came out, but I went to get it, and the first issue was like $4.99, and I think it was $4.99. Yeah, and I was just like, I just can't justify that when I could get 2 other books for pretty much that price. So I haven't bought it yet, but I do want to buy that one. I really want to read, as you know, your old buddy, Old Man Logan. I really want to read that one because because I'm a huge fan of the creative team, and obviously it's my favorite Marvel character.
You've got to get on that one, Greg. It's been amazing.
And there's a lot of Marvel books that I'm interested in, but it's just hard to divvy up my space because my favorite characters tend to come from the DC side.
Well, on that point, what do you guys think of the new Comixology Unlimited, which is kind of being touted as the Netflix of comics, which I know that not every publisher is on board with this, and there are certainly some limitations as far as, I guess, licensing agreements and how long things are going to be available and when things go up, when they come down, all that good stuff. But as far as distribution channels go, it could be a little bit of a game changer. Anybody got thoughts on that?
It's depressing.
Depressing.
Like, I don't know. For me, that's someone that's like, I was a kid. I didn't really have friends. I just had my comic books.
Oh, gosh, that is depressing. But
like, it is depressing.
I kind of know what you mean.
I had the guy at the comic book store who was the only one who would give me the time of day as a child, aside from my dad, who's like, oh you actually want to read something, because my dad...
He's been sitting on that one for half the show now.
My dad...
I thought we were done with this.
Glad we're not.
Never.
There was the guy at the comic book store, and we're not even going to get into what ended up happening to him. It's even more depressing. But it's really depressing that... I feel like this is kind of a sign of the times, and I worry that if retailers aren't able to, step up their game, print as we know it is going to become dead, which is really sad to me. And as someone
that's sort of the question. It's
scary.
like
it's scary, and it's like fear mongering to me.
But that hasn't been the case thus far.
Not so far.
Yet.
I really worry. I really am worried. I don't want comic shops to go away. I want them to get better. Make comic book shops great again.
Oh, there it is.
Oh no.
Where's Bob Backlund?
Just like Darren Young. And not that other slogan that we've heard. Just Darren Young. That's where I'm getting it from, if anyone asks.
Nick, can you give us a Bob Backlund scream?
Yes!
Howard Dean?
They're similar.
Howard Dean on the podcast.
We've had Gerard Depardieu, we've had Howard Dean, we've had Bob Backlund. This is a star-studded edition of
We've had erotic asphyxiation.
We've had various musical tributes.
Musical interludes, yeah.
Including one from Gerard Depardieu, if I'm not mistaken. And
Oh, that's Marie Chevalier.
What a long, strange trip it's been.
This one has been weird, but it has been fun.
It's been fun.
It's possibly been our last episode, depending on how well this
ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us through the PTBN Pop experiment, which is now coming to a crashing halt. After this episode, we've all been fired. Our wellness violation that Nick and I have been serving has been extended, and we've now apparently violated the...
Yeah, I was going to say at least 4/5 of the panel tonight have been wellness violated for sure. So.
I only had 5 beers, thank you.
Or is that 5 6? How many do we have?
I had nothing but water. Thank you tonight.
I plead no consent. Contest? No contest.
No consent? Wait. What are we talking about now?
Where is this going?
That thing that Lindsay Lohan did, where you get a DUI, but you don't really have a DUI, but you admit guilt, but you don't.
No contest.
Yeah. No contest. Yes.
That would have been a completely different discussion.
It doesn't narrow it down either. So,
Lindsay Lohan had some deep thoughts on Brexit on Twitter. Oddly enough.
Really?
Let's just not. Let's
abandon.
I'm not even kidding.
Abandon podcast.
I'm calling it right here. If anyone wants to do a podcast about celebrities and that stuff, I awkwardly pay attention to that. So, another time, another day.
We could do it, especially if it's
considering our Grant Gustin and Tom Holland diversions and uncomfortable implications and things of that nature. I think we could probably squeeze that in.
I'll edit that podcast. I'll mix that one.
Especially if you throw in 1994 celebrities, then I'll
Well, I want to know what Candace Bergen is doing with her life now.
And Dean Cain. Actually, isn't
Dean Cain has made a hell of a career for himself, sir.
At Wizard World, because everyone I know has a picture with him, apparently. Literally almost everyone.
I want a picture of Dean Cain.
That second season of Lois and Clark with the frog eating clones was a little bit rough around the edges, but I felt like they came into their own eventually.
It was. I had tough thoughts about making H.G. Wells a recurring character on the show. But,
God, why did my mom watch that?
I watched it. I loved the show.
Why did anyone watch it?
I was too young, but when I first got into comic books, my mom was like, "Is there a comic version of this?" And I lied to her when I got older, and I didn't tell her about the comic adaptation. I was like, "Nope, there's nope. It doesn't exist."
It's a great show for character interactions. It's a bad show for everything else.
It still has the best version of Perry White ever.
Oh, absolutely. And Lois.
Well, and Terry Hatcher. She went on to Desperate Housewives.
Oh, yes. Terry Hatcher.
Probably the
parents, watched it till the day he lied.
I could do a whole podcast about Terry Hatcher, but that's another story for another day.
I watched a lot
of
do
a whole podcast. It'd probably be only about 90 seconds long.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring it in.
Fans, the format sheet once again thrown out the window.
Hulk Hogan, you could go to hell.
Sign us out before we stroke out.
Of an eventful 2016 Halfies. Will there be a 2017 Halfies? One can only hope. So
we know there won't be another 2016 Halfies because we only do this once a year.
That's exactly right. We always say we're going to do the. Go ahead.
This is awkward. So my dad just discovered what podcasts are.
Oh
no!
Yeah, he's been listening to Serial, huh?
I know he discovered my post on Facebook.
Awesome.
Oh shit!
So if he does end up listening to this, hi Dad.
We're sorry.
Apologies all around.
If he does come across this, I just want to include that at the end. I don't know if he'll stop listening, but
also, so far as I know, none of us are known felons, so we're not. We talk a good game.
Todd Weber died on the way to his home planet.
No, but Tim and Stephanie will be investigated after their Tom Holland comments earlier tonight.
No, we won't. We verified.
Hey, I said he had to be 18. I said he didn't look 18, so I want nothing to do with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, for former WWE World Heavyweight Champion Tim Capel, for Montel Jordan ghostwriter Todd Weber, for former power forward Russell Sellers, and for the newest addition to our panel, Stephanie Holly, and for my partner in crime, the illustrious, eloquous Nick Duke, I am Greg Phillips, signing off on this fair day, and I'm sure that Mr. Weber has a little something that he can plug in here to make you guys feel better about the experience you've just been through.
Oh, man.
The stars, fly a fantasy, dream a dream, and what you see will be rhymes that keep their secrets will unfold behind the clouds, and there upon the rainbow is the answer to a never-ending story. she may fade away in your hands. The birth of a new day. Rhymes that keep their secrets will unfold behind the clouds. And there upon the rainbow is the answer to a never-ending story. Never-ending story. Never-ending story. Never-ending story.